What's good, y'all? It's Clyde, aka Archangel Dardell, and today on 6/19/2022, I have a very special video to do, and I have an announcement and a very special set of instructions and warning for everybody on the planet Earth. So it's very important that we heed these warnings and we don't take any feeling that we have right now lightly, because everything that we sense needs to be taken into account as the most important thing that exists in the moment, or else we can fail to actually keep our planet. So I'm gonna play two songs that are very important to helping us overcome whatever this threat is and the actual threat that it opposes. So the first song is going to be about how we become our best version of ourselves and operate at our fullest. We need to eat a majority from the planet Earth and from the sun. We do not want to eat a majority of fleshly beings, cows, pigs, chickens, anything with a beating heart and brain. We don't actually want to put in our body at a high percentage. Many people put majority animals, dead flesh in their body, and that's much of the problem that we have experienced up to this point. Really, it's actually the problem, because we have caused our own unconsciousness through our free choice and free will, and we have caused ourselves to fall further into the world that we came to not be of, but to change into something more beneficial than it was when we stepped here. So I'm gonna play these two songs, and I'm gonna get into the details of what's going on and why everything seems so serious, and why we don't need to worry about anybody that is a human right now, because humans aren't a threat. It's something different. So let's go. I'm gonna go to the computer and spark up so I could free my heart. But just so y'all know, 6/19/2022, this is my last wood until I take steps to fix the problem with myself and a group of some of my friends. So it's something that I know deep down. I know the process of how to do it, but I just know it's going to be a very difficult process to actually get through. But the thing is, it'll save us from going through, 10 times worse as a result. So it's basically a lot of people in a small group, or a lot of energy from a small amount of people in a small group, and then that is what is going to basically make us save ourselves. So we use a small group of people to essentially perform like a removal of a purge of the source of the problem, allowing everything else to gently just fall back into place, and we don't have to go on the course that we're currently headed on, inevitably, until we fix this. So this is literally a time where we have a ticking time bomb, and if we don't act on how to heal this problem and fix what is bound to happen to the entire planet, if we don't do this properly, then we're actually going to be faced with what could be the end of actually Earth. We don't want to allow what we know beforehand to actually slip away and not turn into action, where we know we could have prevented something that we know is actually very detrimental, catastrophic, and dangerous for everybody on the planet, man, women, and children in age. So now I'm gonna be playing Whole Fruit, and Whole Fruit is a song by myself, Blac HART, to basically promote the idea of a healthier lifestyle and a more hydrated diet, because we know animal products and fleshly meals are the driest of meals. So those need to be eaten with a purpose and not to fill up or get nutrients majority of the time, because it does not have as many nutrients as we think or like to act like it does. And when we get these other nutrients in our body of food grown in the earth, charged by the sun, without flesh beating heart and a used brain, we actually are more efficient, clearer thinkers, better blood flow, lower blood pressure, quicker, stronger. You know, people think you need to eat large, heavy, dense animals to be strong, big, and what's really important is usable. So you need usable strength and usable muscle, usable mobility, usable flexibility. You just don't need to be showing off how much you weigh and showing off your chest touching and showing off your shoulder width. You know, you don't need to show off how many abs you can flex and make, how you can move it. You don't need to show the cuts in your back. You need to be able to do things. That's what's important. All right, let's get to the song. Almost done, man. There we go. I hope you been eating right, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you been eating right. What you been feeding you? Good.
walk to. Echo at O2. Breathe in like oh you. Don't even know you. She gotta know you until you know you. Know if you know you. Where is you O2? I need some whole crew. Bitch, I'm the whole crew. Bitch, I'm the whole crew. I need some whole crew. Everything you can become you. Everything that you can become you. Everything that you can become you. I need some whole crew.
That is a song to say you are what you eat. Simple as that. Excuse me. So you actually, excuse me, you actually need to know what your food you eat on a daily basis actually is doing to you. Is it making you sluggish? Is it making you procrastinate more? Do you notice you eat instead of doing things? Like literally food, drinking, and breathing can be addictions. Just like anything else I've covered in a video before, that I have covered in a video before, anything can become an addiction. You know, even something as simple as what we call now fidgeting. It's a new trend, you know, to do what seems like a nonsense task, but we do it to keep our mind distracted from doing things we don't want it to do. But the thing is, as long as we have anything, we'll have the things that aren't it as well. So really, the inevitable thing is that energy always comes around and does what it has to do or what it's supposed to do. And even though other people have their own perspective on it, it always does what it's supposed to do perfectly. No matter the perspective, everything is always perfect with every single thing that could possibly exist. So even though we focus on something, we still have things that we can't focus on that will manifest in some way, shape, or form, in some form of energy. And we'll be able to tell those things because they'll seem unknown, but eerily familiar. It's like seeing somebody who weirdly enough looks almost exactly like you. You know, it's like eerily like you look like family, but I don't recognize you at all. So, you know. That's to say you have to realize what your heart is here for. Your heart is here for your electromagnetic field. Electrical, and magnetic field. Polarized. That's all that means. That means of light and darkness and of the extreme polarities. Electromagnetic field. So when that is active in anything, because everything has an electromagnetic field or an aura that can be felt, even things that we look at as not things, whatever it is, if you can focus on it, it has an auric field that you can feel and recognize at all times at that exact spot. It's like looking at one spot. Got it. Okay, and not moving your eyes. That's something you should really do to work on focus. You have to pick one spot and one spot only and hold both of your eyes there and your attention. So the thing is, we have a tendency to almost be like chameleons where we'll look and focus at something, but then our mind runs constantly at the same time. So our eyes do this and look all over the place, our head turns, our body moves. We have, you know, behaviors and subtle nonverbal cues and different tonalities in our voice and things that happen with our mouth and our facial features that tell us things. So the thing is that these things are natural, but they are a byproduct of something deeper, more powerful, and more influential than is actually those things that we experience to a fuller degree. So that's part of the paradox. Like, everything balances each other on opposite polarities. You know, if we have fire on this side and I go like that, I have water on the other side. And that's law. And we know everything is light. Everything is light shining within darkness that we are, and that's fire. So when we cool fire down, or when we expand it and go in it, we cool it down and we bring it to become not fire, but cold fire, or solidity, physical fire, or what is ice. Or we could call it cool fire or liquid fire, which is water. Believe it or not, water can be chemically reacted to literally melt through the entire earth. Or it could be chemically reacted to explode to the point where it touches your skin, it blows your head off like nothing ever happened. And that's just water, H2O. And that's why we call it the universal liquid or the universal solvent. Because it's part of what we are universally, which is fire, temperature, expansion, and contraction. Or in reality, just feeling, to feel, and pain. Pain itself is who we are once we learn what we need to learn. We realize that we really are this pain that we know and we have learned from this whole time and have felt since we ever could feel anything. So realize that everything we feel and experience is just different levels of pain. There may be a threshold that says, wait, this doesn't hurt. This feels good. I feel happy right now. Even happiness, even love, even joy. These are different degrees of pain, but to lower degrees. Now, why is every manifestation pain at heart? Pain really codes for the vibration or the energetic code of pain inwardly, attentively. So you're giving something to the inside of you with your one thing that you are, which is your focus. And that's to do whatever it is. Like right now, I am paying inwardly with my focus and attention to make myself exist still so I can make this world exist too. And that's my purpose here, to keep this world existing and to make sure it exists to the best of its ability. And I feel like that's your job too. And that's your superpower too. And that's mine too. So the thing is, with the power that we have in us, it's the literal power that we think we need to worship and that we think is God, that we think we need to get down and pray to and say, help me, we need saving. X all that. We're the Savior. We pray to ourselves, we worship ourselves, and we listen to ourselves. We learn from ourselves, and we check the books and the things that aren't ourselves for confirmation from ourselves. It's always the starting point is you. You are always the starting point. That's how I look at things. It just putting things in a perspective of separateness or separation for now. But I don't look at things as separate. I don't even label things with a word, with a number, or with a sound. And that's key. You don't want to, you want to label things without anything being focused on. You do not want to direct your attention when you focus on things. And when you want to do a specific task, then you switch the flip and you direct your attention to do the task. And when the task is done, you stop directing your attention. This is really key. You have to remember that the outside influences that we experience, are directly controlled by the inward influences that we control through our thoughts, which build up and pool up like pouring water into a cup in our heart as feelings, emotions, and they boil down into our lower self around our belly button area, a little bit below it, about 2 inches, 1.5 inches to 2 inches, and about 1.5 inches to 2 inches, 1 inch to 2 inch in front of the center, the direct center of the spine, going directly in the direct center of the body from space itself at the bottom in the center to all the way at the top in the center here at the top of the head. So everybody has anything in existence has its energy moving in a main a direction, up and down and left and right, going like this, up and down, which would be considered just what that is, like a center point. You wouldn't consider that up and down or left and right, because literally the thing we're dealing with, the perspective it actually has and the mindset that it has combined to make its body, it views, down as it views down similarly to saying, like, if somebody said, can you sit down, and I said the TV's not on. What do you mean? I can't sit on the TV. It's too skinny and it's not on. We need to turn it on for me to sit on it, and I need to be able to get up there from over here right now. I can't get there right now unless I move. So, that person would say, that makes literally no sense. This person's battling, he needs mental medication, etc., etc. But what that person really was trying to say was that, the thing that you try to convey to me means something completely different energetically to my genetic code, or to how I am composed of, with my structure of mindset of thoughts that I push into myself to create my feelings into action. So that is an example of a mindset of somebody who actually is a true antimatter spirit, and they essentially are somebody who is harmful to the world naturally. So what would need to happen is we would need to figure out a way to make them beneficial to the world naturally. So that's where GMOing takes a positive turn, and it doesn't negatively impact our DNA like it actually made us a form of radioactive that wasn't actually, conveyed to us, and was very important to know. So I'm getting into a good story after I play the next song about that too. So with the antimatter spirit versus the earthling, the born earthling spirit, the born earth antimatter spirit is going to view things in almost what feels like a completely opposite and nonsense and somewhat confusing, but they'll express it to you in a way that is said with such confidence and charisma and cadence that it's what they believe at the depths of their spirit. Just like I'm telling y'all all this in this video, and I tell y'all everything else in my videos, and just like I sing these songs at the top of my lungs and make these beats with all of my soul. So, that's just what happens. So we have to realize that this is something that has happened because of because of something we could not control. Because just because we focus on something and we try to think of every possible scenario to fix it, if it were to if it were to be a scenario that were to harm our perfect idea that we have to be beneficial to the world. So we have many focuses, many laws that are to prevent things that we have seen happen in the past happen. So with the things in history that have happened that are catastrophic, or so harmful that we have needed to document them and tell everyone about it in a way so that they understand that this is possible. This is another one of those things to say that this is something that has happened that people think is impossible, but it is so real, and until people realize it is possible, we will not be on guard enough. Okay. So that is to say that the antimatter spirit is literally infesting our world. And it has infested our world. So it likes to basically, okay, let me say this first of all. The antimatter spirit is a non-physical feeling that other people, that people here, spaces here, that anything here can feel and can be influenced by. So it wants, it has the ability to do anything that that you and I can do, except have a physical body. So, and that's only speaking of the spirit itself. We have to separate these things within the paradox to be able to see how it all connects. Excuse me. So, that being said, with the coding of the antimatter spirit, and then the spirit of what we all can understand cohesively together as truth, that means that it's a group of individuals in this world that know one truth, and then there's a group of individuals in this world that have been born, that are multiplying quickly, that believe a completely different truth from an opposite polarity that's mixed and mingled in their own mind to make sense in our world with our laws of nature that make complete sense and are completely binded to our truth. So they've come out of the truth that we know to manifest every single lie that we have ever allowed to exist. And the thing is, we can't control the things we don't focus on. It's just part of what is. You can only control what you're focusing on, so there's always going to be something there that's exactly like this of some varying degree. So we have to all deal with this, whether we like it or not, and there's nothing we can do to change it except act when we know to act, how we know to act, and without thinking about why or how we need to act. And that is to say, we need to think without thought. We need to think without feeling. We need to feel without feeling as well. And then we need to act while knowing we are not doing the action. Because in reality, the highest form possible is doing no action. And that is key to us maintaining the truth that we have in this earth, in this dimension, in this world, in this one universe that we have, and with the antimatter dimension that is literally overlapping it, that was born when the Earth Star Chakra formed in the earth at rock bottom of the heaven's gates, or the gates of hell. So the only reason that this is the gates of hell, or the gates of heaven's love, or heaven's gates, the stairway, The only reason this is the stairway and we're constantly walking here is because we are learning. And the only way to learn is pain. Life is evil because the only thing we can experience is pain. And we learn to make that the best thing it possibly can be. And when we learn to make pain the best thing it possibly can be, we literally learn that we are everything that can possibly be. And nothing exists without us existing too. So I'm gonna play the next song, and then I'm gonna basically go into describing what is this spirit we are dealing with, and its habits, and how to deal with when it takes possession of a physical body and attacks you. Excuse me, guys. How to deal with it when it takes possession of a physical body and attacks you. So I'm gonna go write down some notes because I can't find my notes that I wrote, but I'm gonna play out a song when I bring back this piece of paper. As I bring back this piece of paper, I'm gonna play the song. So y'all will have that. I'm gonna turn it up. This song is called, remember this, y'all. I only need to say it once and you'll never forget. Spicarmia Satan Patron. Remember that word. This is what it's gonna feel like to conquer what we need to conquer. I'm trying to explain. All right, so here's what we're dealing with. We are dealing with a mutated version of Noah's Ark. So we are dealing with a radioactive version of the entire animal kingdom. And a few humans right now that ended up getting caught in the wave of them finding a nesting spot to essentially begin what they are trying to do for their purpose here as the manifestation of the physical body of the antimatter spirit, making a mental body of thoughts turning into feelings, controlling a physical body to a point where it can give it 100% of its will to it, so it can tell it what to do. So then we have how. So how this happened is a little bit longer of a story. So I was looking for jobs, and I had a friend from high school who was working as a scientist for MUTATE, and I found out because she posted it to Facebook, and she mentioned it to me a couple times when I had just checked up on her. So she said, she actually tipped me off and said, you know, we're doing some experimental we're doing some experimental trials, and we need some test subjects to try out some different medications, she said. So I said, I don't really take medications like that, so I don't know if I really want to do it. But I was like, you know, are we trying to cure something? Like, what's this for? Because like I looked up y'all name of MUTATE, and y'all literally make medications and stuff like that, like fruits and like GMO, you know, all kind of stuff. And like, so I'm like, you know, can we study cancer or something? Like, would y'all have to like give me cancer, and then I would have to figure out how to tell y'all to heal it off of knowing the cancer and stuff like that, and like, you know, y'all have to give me medications and trials and everything. And I was asking a bunch of questions, and they answered them for about, you know, 30 minutes to an hour before talking to my dad. And after we talked and they answered all my questions, I just asked them if we're, you know, where do I sign up, just in case I do want to be a part of it, because I wasn't sure yet, because I didn't know what they all wanted to do, and they weren't even sure exactly how they were going to go about this, because they were a little nervous. So once the application went out and they decided what they were going to do, to some extent enough to be able to search for test subjects, you know, people who were willing to basically risk their lives for discovering the new medication or the new whatever, you know, just, you know, risking their life for the new discovery that pushes us to the next level of our evolution. So once I found the sign up sheet where you sign up to possibly be a test subject and to go through the trials before they decide to keep you or not, you know, allow you to be a part of the experiment, they took me and they took my blood. You know, I went through a detailed checkup. Wasn't a regular checkup, but a very detailed checkup where they did like a whole bunch of tests. They did damn near every test in the book. It took like 3 days before I even could leave the hospital just for a checkup. And we talked before I went to the checkup. And she asked me, first she did not tell me who she was on the phone. She acted like she was somebody else to make sure that I had an uninfluenced decision. And I really liked she did that when she told me who she was, because I like being able to freely make my decisions no matter what. So then we talked, and she said, so we're basically trying to experiment with radioactivity and testing different materials to see if they're radioactive, if they're volatile, if they're dangerous, if they're poisonous. Can they kill us? Do they mutate us in a good way, bad way, etc.? So I said, okay, I'm all in for this already. I like y'all, the way y'all thinking in general, because this is something I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to study stuff like this, because I already feel like I could be a superhero, or I have superpowers, but I just don't know how to really activate it. And something tells me that I need to put something in my body or be around something that isn't normally around people and isn't actually allowed to be around people because of legal standards. And, you know, in order to get into that at that field where I needed to get around those things would take a long time, and I feel like I need it all in a short amount of time to make an exponential growth and stuff like that. So I was explaining that to them, and then, you know, she said, well, you actually sound like you actually know a lot intuitively about what we're actually looking to do with this experiment. So I feel like you're actually a great choice. So I'm just gonna go ahead and bump you up to being in the experiment, and your checkup is this date, and what city you in, we're gonna schedule for the hospital, all that. So after the checkup, and I go to the lab, and it's a super, you know, cushy, fancy, look like Trump Tower design room that was my room and stuff like that. Felt like I was rich as hell, like, you know, just balling. And, you know, I didn't have to pay for a thing, you know. So because the only reason I didn't have to pay for a thing was because I signed a contract that said if I die, I do not place blame on anybody but myself, because I chose to participate in any action that I participate in at this location, in this state too, as well, and in between these dates and these dates, and it is up for extension and all that. And that was just a technicality. So everybody that I worked with, that I agreed to allow them to experiment on me and to test different things on me, you know, so they wouldn't get blamed if anything happened to me for me being eager, already having the will and the desire to experiment with these things myself, and for actually following through and experimenting with them, even though I had help. I made my own choices in general. So when I got to the lab, I began basically taking buffers so I didn't, you know, die from whatever I was about to be ingesting and be around. So, you know, I drank things, ate things, weird looking things, weird colored things, weird smelling, you know, some sweet, some nasty, bitter, rancid, you know, all kind of stuff that made me projectile vomit, stuff that made me go unconscious for a few minutes, stuff that made me acted like a laxative, even though it was not a laxative, had no type of laxative in it anyway, acted like an instant laxative the moment it touched my taste buds. So all this stuff was super cool to me, and like I was all in after all this. I'm like, yo, this may be crazy to experience, but this is definitely gonna do some good, because all this stuff is super powerful, you know, and the energy, like, and how quickly it actually works and stuff. So I'm like, this is about to be some real stuff. So eventually I get through the weeks of buffers, and I begin taking the radioactive the radioactive substances of choice, and the ones that I chose, because we learned that poisonous substances are actually poisonous substances are actually a form of radioactive. Anything that can kill you is a form of radioactivity, because we learned that any death is actually just a mutation of radioactivity. And it's just in different forms of a mutation, which is radioactivity. So, for example, black mamba snake venom is radioactive. Poison ivy is a radioactive plant. The brown recluse spider is a radioactive spider. So that would be an example of animals that are radioactive. So they told me that I had to choose four animals or four things that I knew were super duper nuclear radioactive, whatever, and that were needed to basically turn me into Superman. And they said if you had to choose four things in the world, since your favorite number is actually 4, and you sat there and thought for a whole hour straight, focus on what is my favorite number, and you couldn't think of anything else but 4 once you went through 100 different numbers willingly. You chose 4 and went back to it every time after choosing it the first time. So I was like, all right, I guess the first one that comes to mind is a black mamba for Kobe. You know, because this was around the time that Kobe was actually falling off in the league. He was slowing down in scoring. So I wanted to motivate him through just non-physical interactive energy, basically like almost influencing him by praying for him through a ritual and spell. You know what I'm saying? Because you really just pray. The power of prayer is really in ritual and spell. So when she told me to pick the animals I wanted, I chose a black mamba, a black widow spider, and then I was like, wait, hold on 1 second. This is a side note. I had a deep intuition. So during that intuition, something told me that a brown tarantula was needed for the right reaction in my body to properly mutate me enough to do what we're trying to do. So the intuition was that the brown tarantula was actually the most poisonous animal on this planet. But the thing is, it's only poisonous in 10% of its quantity on the earth. And the reason many people don't know it's actually poisonous is because the ones that are poisonous literally burrow and dig in the ground and they hide. Those are the ones that hide and trap them. And the ones that are docile, the ones that they breed and domesticate as pets, those are females. So those are the ones that are not poisonous. And that's 90% of brown tarantulas are female. So those ones are the docile ones you can hold in your hand, kiss, you can lick them. You know, you could damn near, you know, flick them in the butt, or, you know, pick up their legs and hold them by the leg, and they will not bite you. You know, you could damn near touch their fang with your finger and they won't bite you. You know, they are literally so docile, it's like they are on, you know, muscle relaxers into their brain. But the thing is, with the male brown tarantula, they're so sensitive to they're so sensitive to the vibrations in the ground because they burrow and have burrowed for so long. They're so sensitive to the vibrations, they can feel footsteps as in echolocation. So they literally sense sound vibrations to the point where it's like they're physically being touched as somebody's talking and walking by, and they're buried in the ground. So the thing is, the female tarantulas, the 90%, they always end up with a male tarantula because they can smell them and they can hear them moving around and searching. They can actually hear their heartbeat, the difference in their heartbeats. So the docile ones, the females, want to find the males who can be aggressive enough to protect them from black mambas, actually, because black mambas actually eat brown tarantulas. But the thing is, they can only eat females. A black mamba's favorite food is the female brown tarantula, the 90% of tarantulas that are brown. So it took a lot of studying and me being in the lab to actually know all this. Once I had explained that, I had thought this was a deep revelation that I had got about the actual experiment. So they were thrilled at this revelation. We had a party, and then we got back to work the next morning at 8 a.m. sharp, hangover and everything, like it was the hangover. And we actually discussed to finish my story, because literally after I had that intuition of the third animal, we said, you know, fuck it, let's have a party, because that seemed like such a discovery that we damn near already did what we trying to do, so we own it. And then that was part of the truth. So we had a black mamba, black widow spider, a 1 in 10 brown tarantula, a 1 in 10 burrowing brown tarantula, a male 1 in 10 burrowing brown tarantula. Then we had, I wanted, my favorite animal is a dragon, a reptile, a dragon. So like I've always wanted to be a giant, cool looking dragon that could just do a bunch of cool shit and fly around, and like I just feel like that'd be amazing to do. So I was like, wait, what's the most dragon thing in the world? I was like, we need a Komodo dragon spit, because that is literally poisonous. So it's radioactive too, right? And then she was like, she literally dropped her jaw damn near to the floor and shit herself. She felt like, she said, and said, Clyde, you are a goddamn genius, because I completely forgot that Komodo freaking dragons have poisonous spit. And then she was just like, you know what? I'm gonna just, keep going. Just let's go. Let's get the last one. Let's get one more. Let's get 5, because we have 5 appendages. We were like, yup, that makes sense. We have 5 appendages everywhere, so it will make sense to do 5 radioactive animal substances for the mutation of our animal bodies, which we really are, too. An animal is just a being of space with heart and flesh and, blood, brain, all that, that isn't built, with material that turns it into something without a beating heart, a working brain, thoughts. You can't, everything isn't everything, but we have to look at what is as well within the paradox. You have to be able to see it, have an all-encompassing view to really understand living at its simplest form. So this doesn't have eyes, but we know that at the highest form, the world is just an eye that only sees itself. So that's the only eye that this has. But we have eyes that can see things that aren't ourselves. And that's part of how the antimatter spirit was born, because we have the power, after developing ourselves, to evolve so much through the process that we were doing in the lab, just at a simpler extent or simpler example. So it's really the same process of natural selection we did in just a controlled, willed, and exponentially sped up way. So we had a black widow spider, black mamba. We had a 1 in 10 brown tarantula, Komodo dragon saliva. And then we also had 2 other ones instead of just 5, because we wanted to go at 6 for 666, because we felt like that was important to our society as a whole. So I chose 2 more the next day. She allowed me to sit on it and allow it to sit in my unconscious, and for me to relax and enjoy myself for the next 24 hours before I made my decision on the next 2 to complete the total of 6 radioactive substances to go into my body in an attempt to evolve my body to a state where I could essentially evolve the rest of the world with me at whatever rate that has to come, because everything works perfectly. Even though we fully didn't understand that at that time as a whole, even I didn't fully understand that and believe that, but I knew it was true, and I told her that, all that I just said. She said that she's glad I told her that, and that I'm honest with her, and that she's glad that she chose the right person to work with for the experiment to save the world if the worst threat ever would have happened. And I was like, yeah, I'm just glad I can help. So the next day I chose black widow spider, 1 in 10 brown tarantula male, and then Komodo dragon venom. Then I chose black mamba, black widow spider, brown tarantula, male brown tarantula, Komodo dragon venom or saliva, same thing. Then the 5th animal I chose was Excuse me, I'm just trying to recall it real quick what it's called. Black widow spider, male brown tarantula, black mamba, Komodo dragon saliva. So I had 2 insects, a reptile, and then I was like, wait, you know, I either want a bird that can fly for sure. I don't know which of those are poisonous or how we catch it. You know, what's poisonous in it. And then I was like, you know, I want a bird, and then I also want a jellyfish, because I know jellyfish stings are absolutely dreadful to go through, and one of the worst pains I've ever experienced. And I've been stung by a jellyfish that could literally fall through the top of this lighter, and it literally made me pass out, almost drown. And I literally experienced the amount of pain that I literally use to motivate me to get through if I may get stabbed. Not shot, but may get stabbed. I think about that jellyfish sting to say, you know, it's not gonna hurt that bad. Let's get it. So, this is how, by the way. I did what? This is how. So how? So I told her, this is where you come in and get to use your will. You know, I've been choosing the whole 3 days and stuff. So now you find the most volatile, poisonous jellyfish venom you could find. And then she's like, ooh, I like your fearlessness. It's almost cynical. I love it. She's like, if you die, I'm gonna remember you forever. And I'm glad you signed this contract. She kissed it. And I said, you're a little devil. You know what I'm saying? But I'll fuck with you. And then she was like, we just both laughed at it, you know what I'm saying? And like, this is a good way to say, you know, like, not to judge anything, because everything works out for the best no matter what it is. So I chose for, she said, fine, since you told me to choose a jellyfish, you get 2 more animals and 1 extra thing. If you really wanted to make 8 for Infinity and Kobe. Ha. So I was like, bet. So I chose black widow spider, male brown tarantula, black mamba, Komodo dragon spit, whatever super poisonous jellyfish, and then I chose a bird. I was like, all right, I think crows are actually poisonous in some way, so let's get some crows and test if they're poisonous. Sure enough, crows are poisonous. If you pull a crow's feather out, you could literally stab somebody with it, because the secretion that creates its feather and is like its follicle or whatever, the secretion coming from its follicles acts like a poison into its skin, and its skin is actually a poison too. So literally its blood is poisonous, and it's all derived from the follicle, we found out. The follicle itself. So we chose crow, which seemed like a random one. But I originally told her the raven. She's like, a raven is really just a name for a crow. And she's like, I like the Teen Titans reference. She's like, let's play the song real quick. We played the whole song, danced to it for a second. I said, you know, it'd be a dope beat to make that for a rap song. She's like, you know, Clyde, save that for after you're super powered, or after you die in the afterlife and you come back, or whatever the hell happens when you die. You know, let's just get this shit done. Come on, focus. So, you know, we made sure to keep it lighthearted, but make sure we were 100% honest with our feelings and express them 100% with ourselves the entire time. So then we had the 6 animals that we wanted to combine to make the radioactive animal catalyst. So I said, wait, I think we actually need something else to make it all work too, because we can't just use earthly stuff. We need stuff from space itself. So I told her we need literal rocket ships with drones that can go to Saturn. She literally started saying an S before it went, as I was thinking, you know, in the same way. Like, imagine she was saying an S before I said Saturn right there. That's literally what she did. I said, we need Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. We need Saturnium, Neptunium, Uranium, and Pluto motherfucking Tony. And that will be the catalyst we need. We need 10 radioactive substances. And I told her the only way to truly make all of those things individually, I felt in deep in my heart to make it work, was to either get close to 100% or something close to 100% of the every gas that we possibly know of documented in each of those planets in history. So we need all of those. Whether we find a new one or not, it doesn't matter. We just need the ones that are actually documented. And that's technically why they're documented. We just have to figure that out as a whole, but we just figured it out. And then she was like, another discovery, party, Project XY. And then, you know what I'm saying, we fooled for a second. And then we got back to work immediately after because we felt like it was more important than falling asleep. We couldn't fall asleep because we tried. So then we went to some weird place that was on the same like street, but it had like a weird building in front of it, and it was almost like it had a decoy building in front of it. Just like nobody used the decoy building, always go behind it type vibe. So in the building, they basically had like an office, and it was like just like set up like a regular office, and they actually had a direct line to the CEO of NASA itself for some reason. So we literally went there. You know, my friend picked up the phone, waited, you know, a minute or two, said, "What took so long? What the fuck, bro?" You know, like cussed him out and shit. And then I heard him, I'm sorry, I was doing this and that. Like, why you cussing me out? What's so urgent? He's like, and she's like, you know, we're on the verge of the biggest discovery in the history of discovering anything to discover. And I said that right. You can replay that if you need to figure that out. And then, you know, he said, like, you know, no, I heard you. I could overhear all this. And then he said, wait, are you about to ask me to go to space or something to grab some shit that's impossible to grab? And you want me to send some random person up into space or something like that? And then she said, you know, well, whatever we gotta do, because apparently we just made so many discoveries that that we can't stop discovering stuff and everything like that. So basically, after keeping it lighthearted, we explained to him that what we had actually discovered, and he said, you know what, you're right. We should actually go get that stuff because I feel like it actually will complete the puzzle. So we had a drone that was sent out from NASA that was built, and then we actually had to make it so that it ran off of hydrogen, because hydrogen is actually present everywhere. You know, we feel like hydrogen is our name for nothing. So our name for the element of nothing. So that's everywhere. So we ended up figuring out how to get an engine that runs off of hydrogen, so it literally had infinite gas and it could just collect. So what it did was literally drive around every square inch of Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So it covered every square inch and foot of those 4 outer planets of our solar system and gathered every bit of a sample. It took a 50% sample from every single bit of every planet that it could, of the 4. And when it did that, it literally would it would notify us, and then we would essentially control the ionization, atomization, volatilization, combustion, retardation, and then we had to basically do a thing that was similar to euthanizing. So we call it like we basically call it euthanizing. You know, just for, but we said like it didn't mean to give somebody lethal injection. We just meant like to kill the gas or the elements that were all grouped together from the 4 planets in the rocket, to basically kill it, to make it rebirth into a phoenix, was the idea we were trying to create in the sky in case it blew up. So when we did the euthanization, we also had one other step for a 7th step to complete it for the 7 chakras. We felt like the 7 chakras would allow us to have a guide point to create the right chemical reaction to make a giant bond of every element we collected from the outer 4 planets into one literal pill that I would take to complete the chemical reaction after taking the buffers, basically ingesting the poisonous substances from the most poisonous animals on Earth, or our favorite poisonous animals on Earth. Surviving all that, allowing myself to get to homeostasis, to be balanced and calm again, or as calm as I can be, to comfortably say I can continue. And then basically take the pill in the safest way possible, or however I have to take the pill if I'm ready to take the pill. So the 7th thing we had to do was rebirth it, or resurrect it, or what we called, to keep it light, was say, you know, we gotta Christianize it, or turn into Jesus. So we said we're gonna Christianize it, or christen it. We're holy with it. And then we would basically, what we would do after euthanizing it, we would fill it with a thing that was everywhere, but a different version of it, a radioactive version of hydrogen. Hydronoxin is what we called it, because it was radioactivated with oxygen. 15 binds together of oxygen. A 5-5-5 bond in groups of 3 of just oxygen. So O15. So when all that happened, it worked, and we ended up getting a pill that literally would change colors and was little colors that we don't have on Earth. So the pill was literally the size of just the silver part of the lighter. And you couldn't touch it with your physical skin. You know, I tried to touch it. I told him, wait, let me just pop it in and swallow it. And then she laughed and said, do you want this experiment to be over right now, or do you want it to work? And then I said, well, I want it to work, but what's wrong with just taking it with my skin? And then, you know, she held it with those special radioactive only tongs that are made of a special metal and special treated metal. And she said, you know, you want to touch your tongue to this? You know, matter of fact, just touch your strongest, whatever you think is your most, your numbest finger. Touch it to it. So I was like, boop, just like that, as quick as that. And it was the worst pain I ever felt, beyond the jellyfish thing I described to y'all in my and being shot before. So in my index finger, I touched it with the quickness of that, and it literally vibrated throughout every cell in my body. Even my hair, I felt like was shaking to the point of an electrocution. It felt like it electrocuted every cell in my body. And at the same time, it made me so heavy when I touched it that I was as heavy as the earth. And I even made the earth sink for a second, as like it was a roller coaster, and then rise back up in a sinking feeling in my stomach that was so much more intense than the sinking feeling you get from a roller coaster. It felt like I had this, what I could only describe as, I just sunk like God got nervous. And that's what I said. So my friend said, you know, okay, I guess we're on the right track. So then we said, how do you, so how do you take this pill? And I said, well, I guess we have to figure out how to make a literal shoot of the material of that tongue, because that tongue could hold it. It just hurt me when I touched it. So we put that all the way in my stomach and drop it directly into my stomach acid. We just let what happens happens. And I bet I won't die, because I know our mind creates everything. and I will make sure I don't die. And then she literally tried to jinx me when I said make sure I don't die. She said it so fast, and I said it similar to my pace. I said right there, and I said she was like, she pointed to me, let me have the floor, and I was like, jinx, and she was like, hi. Okay, let's get it. Excuse me. Then we basically went to figure out what can melt the tongs that basically we use to touch the thing that's not supposed to touch anything we know of. And we literally took years and years and years and years and years and years to be able to finally figure out what we need to make to be able to even touch and gather this material that we can't seem to touch with anything we have, including our physical bodies. So we figure out what's a grip true radioactive material with that we label with the EM, because it has like a super radioactivity to it because of different charges. It has a process of radioactivity it goes through that's so quick. So then they made the shoot. Long story short, they drop it in uncomfortably to my stomach, and it hits my stomach, and you literally hear it. So like I was like, whoa, you could literally hear my stomach acid bubbling when it touched it. And then she shined a flashlight through and said, oh, it's too dark, but I'm sure we could probably see something bubbling up, and it damn near burned my eyes. So I know we're hitting your stomach acid. So I'm just gonna make sure I lift it up, and then it's not all the way at the bottom, so we don't just hit your skin and make it ruin our test subject, because I feel like the stomach acid will do something to it. But we've learned that, and then she was gonna say the stomach acid has no effect on radioactive material of that kind, but there was something different about my stomach acid after everything I had been ingesting and becoming. So, and that was also the reason I was able to withstand all of the poisonous substances. Wasn't just because of the buffers I took for the 2 weeks ahead of the time in the lab. It was also because of following my own intuition and instincts throughout my own life, before I even decided to try the experiment. Just trying things that people said was weird, or like, things that, were taboo or we weren't supposed to try. And then, maybe experimenting with some things that were said to be deadly, but just testing it out to see how deadly is it. Like, will it kill me if I just play with a little bit with like this, but not how they say? Or like, what if I do it how they say not to do it, but just a little bit to see if something can happen, if I can be a scientist and make a chemical reaction just in my mouth. I felt like the mouth was the best place to make any chemical reaction if you could allow it to actually be in there and survive it. So, because that really was the original tester in the experiment, the original. It was the original field for the experiment to be done in, was the mouth and the hands and the feet. That's where we originally experimented with things. So when they dropped it into my stomach, it immediately acted like a Mento dropped in pop to my stomach acid, and it projectiled onto my friend's face and literally burned her face to the point where she literally had her cheekbone showing, her chin showing as bone, and her lips were gone, and her nose was dripping down her face. So literally it made me projectile vomit some highly abnormally acidic stomach acid on my friend from high school's face, and literally melted like it was flesh-eating bacteria or little hydrochloric acid. And then when she dropped it, it literally made my stomach acid so hot, and everything that popped out of me, projectile vomited, was so hot that it made me unconscious, made me pass out because I felt so much pain from it. And I couldn't stay conscious and experience the pain properly for some reason. So I fell unconscious. That's what happens when you fall unconscious, when you experience so much to your senses that you can't process it. So you have to literally go back to nothing and allow your body just to act on its own under divine will to, you know, of the world around you and the world it is without you, to because you've actually acted out of character. You know, that's really why. So that happened, and what happened was we got her into like a stem cell kind of like healing mask, and on, you know, a medication medication, well, pain medication solution IV, and fluid and food IV, and, you know, all these precautions that were so abnormal. And through all that, she literally could write on a paper, "worth it," and stick up her middle finger as she, you know, fell asleep. And you know, to say fuck it. And so she's a strong one. And then, you know, we eventually were able to, you know, heal up her wounds, you know, stop the melting, of course. You know, we were able to stop it because we had predicted that possibly could happen, so we were able to neutralize the volatile radioactive stomach acid, and we were able to GMO her lips and everything back, and we had to implant it onto her from GMOing it separate from her body, because we couldn't use her because she was too ill and caught up. So we had to have the backup, like kind of like the vice president, step in and help me complete the experiment, because she said, we asked her, did she want to continue, because I told her, you know, I broke down and I wanted to stop because I felt like I hurt her. And then we wanted to, we technically wanted to quit, but we said we felt like if we did quit, we were quitting when we experienced a trial that was just something that was meant to push us further into the actual experiment. So long story short, we all came together, and, you know, my friend agreed it was worth it to keep going, and then she would do her best to help us. So, you know, we got back started, and when the crazy part is, when they actually dropped the pill into my stomach, it made me fall unconscious. And when I fell to the side, I fell to the left, and I fell trying to catch myself with my head hanging completely. And as I fell, there was a big light coming out of my stomach, because everything was recorded in the lab. And the pill literally fell in what looked like the exact same form, straight through so fast, and then it hit the ground and put an indent of a whole foot around the center of it. The diameter of the hole was a literal foot, like 11.98 inches exactly. And the indent kept getting deeper and deeper on its own. It's like the literal pill was heavier than the earth itself, and was literally just about to break through the earth. So I almost touched it unknowingly, and then I got yelled at. And then we tried to pick it up, but after being in my stomach, it had made a chemical reaction that literally did make it heavier than the earth. So the thing is, we literally couldn't pick it up no matter what we did. We literally stopped the experiment. You know, I went to the hospital to make sure everything was okay. They told me what happened, that after I had passed out, you know, they told me everything that happened while I was passed out on the camera. They said, from this point on, this is what happened. And then they showed me the camera and everything after telling me to my face before showing me the camera. And then they said they wanted to stop, and then they were sending me home. So I went home, and then they actually called me back, like at immediate emergency come back right now. Like, we literally are pulling up in 5 minutes. We don't care if you're not ready. Just walk out. We don't care if you don't have shoes on. We don't care if you're butt naked. We'll buy you clothes at the next stop and food, drink. You know, you have everything you need. Let's just go. Come on. This is what you need, and you're already this far in and you survived, so that means you're meant to be here. So, oh, another side note. A crazy part about when it fell out the side of me, the wound of the light that was coming out, stomach acid fell, blood fell out of the hole when it fell at the same time. But it sealed up. Like, the light just closed up, and then the wound healed, and they said, wait, check your shirt. And they were checking my shirt so fast. They lifted up. It was no cut there, no blood, nothing, no scab. They were like, how the heck did he heal? How the heck did he heal? And then the truth is, a Komodo dragon is family with a gecko and a chameleon. So its venom had gecko and Komodo dragon DNA in it. So that made it regenerative when it was in my body, because I became part of that. You know, because I already had the regenerative and the healing properties and the cloaking, the camouflage properties. So we realized that, you know, animals have literal superpowers, so obviously we do too, and we have to activate some of them. If not, you know, have all of them active when we're born. If not, we have to activate them. So we were like, this is how we're gonna do it, and we literally did it because we looked at the camera footage and we literally got over the emotions we were feeling and said, fuck this, we're doing it right, and we just need to do it. So we did it. Then, as the pill was breaking through the bottom of the lab, we figured out that nothing that we had used on the pill to make a chemical reaction that wouldn't blow it up, that would blow up that side of the world. And so we wanted to pick it up. We tried cranes, we tried, you know, bulldozers. We tried, this whole time it's sinking like a ticking time bomb, we felt like. And making the crater bigger and bigger and bigger. And so we couldn't even pick it up with tongs. Like, physically we couldn't pick it up, but we were, she was weaker than me. You know, she was less strong than me. And she was holding me with tongs before she put it down the chute. It fell out onto the floor, it was still on the floor, and I couldn't even physically pick it up with the same tongs. I couldn't pick it up to put it into a special radioactive case to keep it safe so it doesn't get ignited or, you know, combusted accidentally. So when I tried to pick it up, I literally, you know, fell back so hard that everybody yelled out supernatural. They were like, whoa, how did he just fly away so far? He literally fell back about, like, wait, stay right there, Clyde. So I literally fell, like, I think it was like 13 or 14 feet away from where I was, the crater itself, after it was only like an inch deep and a foot in diameter. So they said, how did you fly like you were anti-gravity for a second? It's gravity here. They all like jumped, you know, a few of them jumped. They're like, yeah. It was like, you know, I guess I need to wait to figure this out because all this is so new. It happened so fast. And then they were like, do you realize what you're doing right now? And then I looked down and I was like, and I smacked the ground as hard as the pill. And I created a crater about 8 feet in diameter, and I'm about 6'2". So literally a similar thing happened to me, but I just noticed that something was happening. So the ability that I was working with basically canceled itself out because my focus on the fear of not being able to do what I was doing activated when I focused on it. And I accompanied with my feeling of having a fear of falling from a height. So all that accompanied together when I looked down and I was suspended, activated a counterintuitive movement of my direction and will to make me fall. So that's why it actually is karmically powered to be supernatural, or natural. Everything is powered by karma. So we also figured out that karma is hydrogen. That's another word for hydrogen, or nothing. What we call here. These are different words we have for the same things. So, since karma charges all things in existence with the energy they carry, we were like, why did he fall when he got scared? Because we don't want him to feel an emotion that he doesn't like, and all of a sudden he can't do what he needs to do. So we started testing things, and I told them that, well, it felt like only under situations of extreme stress or pressure, and then they all figured out at the same time, like, oh, you have to be in literal, real extreme danger, and you can't be dumb and put yourself in real danger, like try to kill yourself, or just try to stab yourself, or literally try to mess with somebody, start a fight, because that's bad karma, and the bad karma puts the other person, who is the victim in that case, naturally on their side, and it superpowers them, so you get broken up and die, or whatever happens to you, you lose the fight. So because you always live to see another day no matter what happens. So we realized that karma works off of being what's called a good person, or basically doing what you feel in your heart is most beneficial, whether you realize something can be more beneficial after the fact, you act on trying to make that thing beneficial the way you thought was most beneficial. So saying you had one idea, like say this is one idea, like, oh, it's the greatest idea ever, I just made it. And then I'm like, wait, I have another idea. Boom, 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 I make this. I'm like, wait, this does the same thing as this, and it does these other things too. So this is actually my greatest invention. How did I not think of this when I just had this? But everything happens for a reason. It's perfect. You just don't want to have the guilt of saying, I should have did this. There's no should. There's only I did this, and this is the result. And honestly, this is why it's beneficial, because everything is beneficial from the proper perspective, because all possibilities exist in all things. So, we went over everything that we had studied, and we figured out that there was nothing we can do. We basically just have to allow whatever happens, happens. So when the lab eventually collapsed completely into the earth and caused a few earthquake tremors and a few natural disasters, but it wasn't anything so bad that it set off the radar to look into it to a higher extent than it was looked into. It was no signs of that. Because for some reason it didn't even show up on the seismic radar, in the data. So in the cosmograph or something like that, whatever it's called, it didn't show seismic data for the time that the forensic evidence showed that the lab collapsed. So we were trying to figure out, why didn't the lab collapsing set off, that actually did set off an earthquake that we could obviously tell from looking at the lab area now. Why didn't it set off the seismic meter, and the depth that it's actually cracked to should have set it off to magnitude 3. So we figured out that the pill was actually getting heavier with time, and it exponentially was getting heavier. So once it got to a point, it literally just pop and just plopped like a turd into the toilet, into the Earth's core. And apparently the Earth's core is a certain type of liquid that's similar to lead, but it's different than lead, because lead is derived from something in the Earth's crust, the outer parts of the Earth. But in the core, there's what we kind of figured out was actually, before it actually became super radioactive, we called it, from the pill falling in it. It was actually liquid. What we figured out was liquid electricity. So we said like lightning was gaseous electricity, and then the Earth's core was literal liquid electricity. You know, for lack of a better term. You know, because no matter what, it wouldn't cool down. No matter what we put it in, because we literally put it in something derived from as close as we could get to sample without destroying our machinery, from the Earth's core. And it literally worked. And we could have a cup of it and hold it in our hands, to a liquid from the Earth's core, and drink it if we wanted to melt ourselves. But believe it or not, I actually threw it on myself just as a test, because I knew it wouldn't do anything. And it literally, I felt it melt my face. I screamed and my face came back. So it's crazy what we can do in all possibilities. And then that's also not to say I didn't do that with the intent to harm myself. I did that with the intent to fact check what I already felt as 100% fact as much as myself. So it was basically to show them more so than to show me. You know, I didn't want to see. I literally felt that they wanted to see that if I threw this cup of the Earth's core on my face, would I melt in it? So the thing is, I melted and my face came back. So they said, wow, maybe you could do a cannonball and you would cause a chemical reaction with the pill to not make anything bad happen. Or at least to be able to essentially become a phoenix that could stop it if anything bad happens. So I ended up having to literally jump from as high as I could, you know, see the Earth's core, because that's where when I felt comfortable to do it without dying. I didn't feel comfortable to do it, to jump into the Earth's core, you know, butt naked, until I had a conscious memory of regenerating myself from a certain death, and then until I had a visual view of the Earth's core, so it didn't feel like I was going into the unknown. You know, I had a fear of the unknown still, and I felt like that was going to be a main block into stopping this from working. So long story short, I hit the cannonball, and then pain is just an illusion, even though everything we experience is the only feeling we have of pain. So the only thing we actually experience is different forms of pain that we give different levels to. And then when you really get to the nitty-gritty of it, the deepest level, it's just pain, and we just learn to make it feel good to ourselves. So literally these antimatter beings have a different idea of what pain is to them. So that's the key here too. They literally feel they're hurt in a completely different and way that does not make sense to us to be hurt. So you literally have to hurt them. You have to figure out how to, from a mental standpoint, you have to, or from a spiritual standpoint, until it gets physical contact with you, you have to make sure you do things that feel like shouldn't make sense to do, but you want to do for whatever reason, you know, and it doesn't matter what reason, it just matters that you want to do, because the only thing matters right now is what you want to do. You always do what you want to do, no matter what I've said so far, no matter what anybody has said so far, no matter who you worship, you should always do what you want to do. So then, you know, I jumped into the Earth's core, and I remember it got super hot that I knew was beyond boiling, was all I felt. I'm like, yeah, it's definitely beyond boiling, but it feels like nothing. I was like, wait, this is the Earth's core, bro. This is really cool. Like, let me just soak this in for a second. I'm literally melting in the Earth's core right now. So I'm literally just in my, I'm melting, but I'm going inwardly into my mind to become only a mental form, existing as a mental structure of what I want to be as a thing in the present moment, because we're always in the present moment, birth, death, no matter what, living, no matter what. So So when I was burning up in the Earth's core, it felt like it took a lot longer to burn up my body than it actually should have. And then once it fully burned up my body, I didn't see myself only as the Earth's core with a mind, because that's what I felt like when I fully had fell into it slowly. And it's funny because if you guys could literally see what it was like when I had jumped into the Earth's core, I literally hit it, screamed so loud they heard me scream. And in the same breath of me screaming, I said, "It's okay, guys, I'll be back." And then they all said, "You better, you mother." And I couldn't hear them after that. And then that's when the mental part started. So then once everything went black, I actually got scared. And this is all supposed to happen. Everything that happens is supposed to happen. So I got scared, and then it's like that video where I described what happened when I remember the process of reincarnating myself. So just check that video where I said, it's like a 1645 video, and it's the one where I explain, I think it's the difference between an antimatter spirit and a regular spirit, or something along those lines, but I will link it below the usual description in this video. So anyways, we experience the reincarnation process, and then I remanifested myself. I chose to remanifest myself on top of the lab, and I was fully able to use what I felt was my mind to do all possibilities once I was back, and I manifested myself, because we literally manifest ourselves out of thin air every time, and we manifest everything out of thin air to existence as we are, as one I. And we also destroy something at the same time to bring in something into this world out of nothing or thin air. So it's part of the paradox. Everything exists in a paradox of yin and yang, of antimatter and earthling, or whatever you want to say, dark and light. These are just things that exist. You can only focus on 100% of one thing at a time, even though you can split one thing into many things, to divide up the 100% of focus that you actually have. So the cool part about us is that even though we focus on things and we can do whatever we want with what we focus on, we also can't focus on a lot of things. So anything we focus on automatically makes a counter reaction, is what it's called, because everything has a equal and opposite reaction. So this is the opposite reaction that it has, called the antimatter. So that's where this comes from. The superpowering of the human race into something new actually ended up making the earth more complete, but it also birthed a new world at the same time of making things a completely different book of being better and more beneficial, and literally turning everything else that we have been doing and surviving on and looking at as our comfort to harmful. So it literally flipped our world upside down, is what I'm saying. So so that's how this actually happened. This is how the Earth star, when I said the Earth star chakra, that basically just means the Earth's the light that of this planet Earth's core became ignited, and it literally manifested its own conscious electromagnetic field instead of just an unconscious one that it naturally kept in it. So when we got back together and they realized that after about 2 weeks it took me of time in No Thing to get back to my friend's house, which I miraculously knew where it was. Just she didn't give me the address, but it was a spell because we knew I would know where her house was just intuitively off feeling out the entire space of this existence. And I would know to go to it if I could actually make it back. She knew that. So she said, I'm not going to tell him my address. I'm just going to tell him, come to my house when you're back. See ya. So I went to her house, and then, we tested me, and then we learned that, everything seemed the same, but a few things. And I seemed to be under a lot more control of myself and my abilities when they put me under extreme stress, or they put me under what was, certain death situations. So when I passed all those tests, and then I wasn't really showing the physical mutations, they turned to the news to say, we're gonna test this on this day, yada yada yada. When we did that, we pushed it back and back and back, and then when we did, eventually, what had happened as what felt like an accident was really meant to be to allow the antimatter world to unify with this one, so that we could be at the position where we could butt heads to learn more about ourselves and to be able to better understand and forgive other spaces, because we have struggled to understand, forgive, and to heal our own world. So we have literally manifested a world that is completely different than our world, completely different than our world, to actually make it make more sense to us. And that's part of the paradox, but it's really how it's gonna all come together. So that's why. That's the purpose of all this happening. The purpose of all this happening is to just become ourselves deeper, more deeply. So the reason that the whole animal kingdom became what I call the whole animal kingdom became radioactive or super radioactive was because there was a collapse that knocked in a nature reserve, and also for some reason there was just a super hot spot for a lot of animals after everything we had been doing there, and after everything that had taken place in that alignment of that geographical area over time. So a lot of crazy, powerful things have happened in that area. And it was in the Bermuda Triangle, believe it or not. And then, so we had the collapse. I went in to try to neutralize the Earth's core, because the Earth was literally, getting into a catastrophic point where it felt like it was gonna supernova, and it was literally showing early and intermediate signs of dying and becoming a supernova and imploding at a fast rate that was faster than was ever on record of any planet blowing up. So what they told us was the Earth could possibly blow up faster than any other planet has ever blown up, and we could all die if we don't leave. So that's when everybody started planning, like Elon Musk, to fly to Mars, yada yada. So all of that was literally to help. We did all of this in a literal purpose without thinking about it more than once to help fight what we felt was controlling the minds of the people of our world, to make them do things that they really don't want to do, because we all agreed before the experiment that people don't naturally want to do harmful things to each other or anything else. They only want to do beneficial things, but they do harmful things because they think it's what they're supposed to do. And that's the key. Antimatter beings, no matter the form, and an antimatter being is just a supernaturally harmful demon, being, whatever. A supernaturally harmful being or animal, whatever it is. A supernaturally harmful thing. That's what it is. So it actually feels and thinks it knows. Let me say this right. It feels and knows, as deep as its existence, that harming things is its job, its best ability, and what it is supposed to do beyond anything else. So remember that. So we tried to make a giant neutralizing bomb. Instead of a catastrophic detonating bomb, we tried to make a giant neutralizing bomb consisting of the most healing element we could find in any animal, which is the universal healing element, or the stem cell, which is used to brew GMO cells of anything. So we use the stem cells of every animal we could possibly find into a neutralizing bomb that we were going to send down the chute that I dove down into the Earth's core, and that the pill fell through to make the collapse of the tunnel in the first place. So we sent it down after making what we nicknamed, Noah's missile, or Noah's Ark, because we literally took samples from every species documented, and even ones that we found. We found 3 new species, searching for species that we needed to collect a DNA from, or substances from. So even 3 brand new species put their healing DNA into this stem cell missile, and then we shot it down. Well, we just dropped it down under Earth's gravity, and it hit. It blew, and then it bubbled up like a Mento, and then it literally did what a volcano does when it lays dormant. So it basically bubbled up over a little bit and then slowly receded and dried. It didn't erupt and extend beyond the canal of what it actually was doing, of what it didn't extend beyond the canal of what it was actually formed. So I jumped in to try to neutralize it so it wasn't radioactive, and continue to basically make the radioactive animals that it made when they fell in and let off their pheromones into the world from the tunnel. So the pheromones from the animals that had fell in from the original pill making the tunnel before the missile was launched, those animals had made the other animals that had breathed in those pheromones radioactive and mutants from. So basically, a mutant is just a physically mutated body is a mutant. So it's a body that's born one way and it literally mutates into a different physical form. So even a boil like that on my chest is a mutation. So just because I have a boil like that, that literally means I'm a mutant. You know, even if I didn't display any supernatural abilities, that would literally mean I'm a mutant. So, so basically the pheromones hitting the Earth's core after the pill that we couldn't move fell in, and after me jumping in and sacrificing myself to try to neutralize it and being able to come back, I didn't feel comfortable trying a second time because I felt like it would make up a polar reaction that would make it even worse than it actually already was. So I felt like, you know, me going in again and trying to sacrifice myself a second time to try to double up the power, which was the idea, was not a case of a good idea because it didn't feel proper to me. So once we put the STEM missile down, it bubbled up, and then it basically laid like a dormant. We labeled it a dormant, basically volcano tunnel or hole. So it was basically a big crater that was filled with lava directly from the Earth's core. So it was the biggest cone-shaped pool of lava on the planet at the time. And at one point, it actually erupted because a bird had died in midair after breathing in some of the sulfur, some mutated sulfur from it that actually was poisonous for it. And it was a bald eagle that died. So it fell in, and when it fell in, it caused a chemical reaction because a bald eagle's beak is the radioactive part of a bald eagle, because all things exist in all things. Everything is something radioactive. So its beak is the bald eagle's radioactive part. So when its nose died, it set off a little eruption, and that's never happened. So it would set off an eruption at an instant, and that has never happened, like I said. So it set off an eruption at an instant that we caught on camera, and as we caught it on camera, it expanded like a little tsunami, and the camera was black and gone. So all we had was literally it exploding, expanding back, and dissolving our camera. So at that point, we had already heard what was happening, and it sounded like the world was in an apocalypse. So some people don't remember everything that happened between when the entire world felt like it went black. And what I mean by that is we had a giant blackout globally, and they were announcing, you know, physically to every house that we're having a global blackout. You know, police were going around, government was going around announcing to people with a loud phone, with a megaphone, and they were saying, you know, we are in a earth-wide blackout, and when we say that, that means international. And if you do not know what that is, you cannot even Google it. The TVs do not work. Nothing works. It will be pitch black once nightfall hits every night until we figure out what the heck is going on. So the thing is, once everything went black, the only thing is we literally didn't know it went black when it blew up, because we were watching from the Bermuda Triangle at the spot. And when we were watching in the Bermuda Triangle, we went outside, and it was bright. It was day. And we had power, because the doorbell went doo-doo-doo when we opened the door and walked out. You know, so we definitely had power, and the door was an automatic door. So we had power. We didn't have to manually open the door. And the emergency broadcast warning that we were getting was that the power was down in the main power supply for the whole world. And my friend told me that the power is down in the whole world. And then I told her that, you know, that's impossible. How is the power down in the whole world? Could that even be possible? And then she had to check me for a second to get me in my right mind to say, after everything that we have been doing to you, with you that you have agreed to, that we have done and beyond. You can literally say that anything's impossible at this point. You know, like, do you want me to smack you with a machete? So I was like, you know what? You're right. So all possible. Let me remind myself always. Let me write that on my forehead like it's a hot dog. And then she was like, you know, we got lighthearted again. She's like, you know what? I'm glad, even though I get mad at you sometimes because it's so intense and I feel like I'm in danger for some reason. But you know, I'm just glad that I get to do this with you, because you literally make this so easy. And I feel like the only reason I'm having a bad time is because I'm struggling trying to put together my emotions properly into structure. And I'm like, you know, you have a good way of looking at things and analyzing things. And I'm glad you can, and I'm glad you can really relay how you speak to people so truthfully and clearly. You know, it's like that's really like your power. You can really see things clearly. So maybe that's why you're in this experiment in the first place. I'm talking to my friend who was burned, who is back now at this point, because all this was happening during the point where she was healing from, you know, her face burning to putting it back together. So she was back once. She was back in her house and fine once literally she was back in her house and fine. She told me she came back to a blackout. So she told me that she had to drive home and she had to fill up gas with a flashlight, and she felt like demons were chasing her and all kinds of stuff. She felt like it was a zombie apocalypse, etc., etc. So when the most important part happened, it was when was the most important part, because the alignment that it happened at was actually an alignment that many great things have happened, not just the geographical location, but the time as well that we were doing all those things we had noticed before actually consciously studying the astrology to keep any outside influence in affecting our experiments. We noticed that it was all a super important and pivotal moment for all of us in the world. So when that explosion happened, it acted like a nuclear gas, because it was such a big volcanic eruption, the biggest ever. It acted like a nuclear gas that turned anything radioactive that it could turn radioactive. It did, and all the radioactive beings took on mainly characteristics of the insect kingdom, because deep down we all know that insects, bugs, have the best makeup ability and know-how for their size. So the ratio of all their knowledge being applied is the best of anything. So it's in reality, if you know the truth, everything is actually a form of a bug, believe it or not, of an insect. We literally start as insects in their simplest form. Besides no thing, we're an insect. As the most complex thing with a heart and a brain. So you know what I'm saying? Like you can be no thing, and then you can be water itself, one individual in a cell of water, you know, or the cell of water itself in other water. Just for example. So this is where so all the animals that were infected with the noxious gas that made them mutate physically extremely fast because of how volatile it became, because it was actually sentient, because essentially it's my fault that it became sentient, because when I jumped in it, I I was so conscious when I jumped in it and when I was dissolving away that I left a residue of my thoughts that it manipulated with the decaying DNA of animals that didn't know how to rebirth themselves into something more beneficial. They were birthing themselves in a negative karmic cycle of harm to allow themselves to become more negative and more harmful every time they rebirth themselves. So they rebirth themselves harmful, use their mind to change my mind that I left behind in the Earth's core to make it harmful. And then they birth themselves into physical bodies as will to control the animals. And then once they birth themselves as will, they have the animals acting out of character. And then when they have them acting out of character, they aligned fully and they allowed themselves to mutate. They allowed themselves to become mutants, or they allowed their physical bodies to mutate outwardly. So instead of just becoming dogs, they became bug dogs, where they're literally they have literal, crab-like spider hands that are sharper than razors, and when you hear them touch the ground, it sounds like you're stabbing the sharpest knife you've ever seen into something. Just sing, 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 and they can move faster than you think. So these are just some of the ones I've actually seen on the surface. So these are obviously the ones they send out to find out what's going on up here, as they say where they are. So that I'm getting to that. They literally use the brown tarantula's male hunting go-to technique of burrowing and mining, or setting a mine, or like a booby trap, a bear trap, to hunt. They use that to burrow tunnels literally in the Earth's crust to essentially make a world that they can live in and colonize themselves as ants, as mutant giant animal ants, because mainly they're going to use a bug DNA or insect DNA. They're going to use insect abilities, so it's going to feel like they're doing things as like a superpowered bug, or like they're flying like an insect would, but it feels like it's super powered because the buzzing sounds super fast and not just like a bee or a wasp. It sounds faster and more scary, for lack of a better word. It sounds like it's putting a bigger element of fear in me than it normally does, so it sounds abnormal. So these are things you need to look out for that you're hearing. When they begin following the will of the antimatter spirit, they'll begin acting out of character, and it'll be very obvious they're acting out of character, and they will have little to no real common sense explanation that will give you logic as to why they're acting that way. So you need to be able to check people and be able to understand what sense are you making from your actions. You need to literally have people explain, how things make sense if you don't understand it and you really want to know. The key is to always follow your desire no matter what. This is just information to keep us safe, because I know everybody in the world wants to keep this world. So this is how we're going to do it, because if I don't do this, we're not going to know how to do this and keep the world. So they burrow, and then they can literally burrow through concrete, and they become so psychically connected to no thing from an antimatter perspective. So they literally feel like no thing is the most possible solid thing there is. They feel like everything that exists in space and silence is just one giant block of a square and circle, triangle, whatever you want to call it. It's just one giant block of a toy. Like, it's just one block of stuff. And everything just passes through it, freely. So it's like, trying to pass through a wall, but you can pass through the wall, and the wall is literally everywhere, expanding infinitely. But the idea is, we know from being born in this world that the wall they see literally permeates or, extends throughout every piece of everything that can exist. and it's actually not a solid thing that can hold things in the sense of physical hold in a geographical location without an outside force acting on it. And that's because the antimatter spirit doesn't realize that it acts. It is the spirit of not focusing. So the only thing it knows how to do is not have focus. The only thing we know how to do is focus. So we literally have to learn how to not focus to relax ourselves. They have to learn how to focus to relax ourselves. So the key is, if you don't want to kill an antimatter spirit, whatever form it's in, you actually have to convince it persuasively through thoughts and feelings without physical touch, because you can't touch them physically. Believe me or not, no matter what, you cannot touch them physically. You don't want any part of their body touching you. You don't want anything that comes from their body touching you, and vice versa. Like, we literally have to live on different parts of the world and split it in half, and that's literally just the way it has to be. And it's a form of segregation that you will understand when you come to understand it. And if you doubt this at any point, you will experience an experience to the fullest degree that will show you how differently the antimatter spirit really feels about you and your true feelings that you believe in and know is true. So they burrow, make a tunnel system like ants, and they have a king and queen. They've elected a king and queen from the mutated animals that have assimilated different beings, because they've mutated the chameleon and gecko DNA to basically have the ability of Kirby, because they use my mind and the memory that I left behind when I died in the core of Kirby. Because I think of Kirby when I try to think of my superpowers or when I try to do anything, because I know Kirby literally has the ability to do anything that it comes into contact with, because it can absorb the abilities of whatever it wants just by eating it, which is our power. That's literally our power. We're all Kirby. So that being said, they burrow, and we're all the same at the end of the day. Remember, life's a paradox, but things are more true and things are less true. Everything's true, even the fake stuff, but things are less true and more true. So the highest truth in this is that this is our world, and their invaders, they've hid below the earth, dug out a tunnel system, and the king and queen are down there, and they're literally working together. The king is the feelings of the entire antimatter spirit, and the queen is the thoughts of that entire antimatter spirit. So the queen has a physical body that looks like a bunch of eyes. When it's in its hibernating state and pregnant, it looks like it has a bunch of eyes in just a ball. So it looks like a million eyes stuffed into a black ball that has floating, what looks like floating legs around it. What looks like floating spider jellyfish legs around it that circle it completely and look like a crown above it, like that. So it looks like its legs are on top of it, facing up, going like that, spinning in a circle and moving in a circle as well. So all of them are spinning in a circle and going like this in a revolution around its head, and then it switches every now and then. And the key is, you want to kill the queen. There's a weak spot on the bottom left, because the birthing canal is on the bottom left, and you basically have to scoop out the birthing canal with some type of sharp device or sharp devices, and then you have to neutralize the queen and king both separately or at the same time, but you have to neutralize them with a special type of detonation that actually would prevent the gas that they emit from mutating the entire planet, which it will do inevitably, because they burrowed below where we don't go, and they burrow in the planet through ant-like tunnel system throughout the Earth's core and throughout the crust, where they are mutating at a high rate, and they're hibernating right now. So they're in the process of hibernation, and in this process of hibernation, every single one of the antimatter physical bodies, mental bodies, and spiritual bodies all go into the queen, except for the king and some warrior antimatter bodies. So they keep the strong fighting antimatter bodies that they feel like don't need to mutate right now to protect the king and queen, to patrol the, basically like police. And they so they're a lot like us in many ways too. So just like I said, everything's just everywhere. Remember that. So so I already mentioned how you neutralize the queen, and then to neutralize the antimatter spirit right now, we need turmeric. We need any formula of pepper spray, but preferably the strongest form pepper spray we can get, the strongest concentration of pepper spray we can get, maximum strength. Even like if we could double the maximum strength, do it. So we need turmeric, organic turmeric, ground as fine as possible. And then we also, in putting it in a glass container, a sealed glass container, is very helpful to make a catalyst, because the antimatter being itself, being a burrower, and off of the mutation it went through, it's similar to oil if we were water. So that's why it'd be such a pain if we touch, but that's also why we both are each other's kryptonite. So that's why this is like fighting our perfect match, like putting LeBron and Kobe together for 82 games in a basketball season into the playoffs, in the finals and all that. And so they are hibernating right now, and I know for a fact it's in Michigan, and the epicenter of the epicenter of where it all started, of the burrowing and then the queen mutating and then remutating the colony after they carved out the ant colony that they made in the Earth's core. They went to rejoin with the queen, and they kept the protectors and they kept the king out there to chill and patrol, to protect, because the king can fight like a motherfucker too. The king is actually the best fighter they have. The queen is actually the weakest, but it's the most meticulous. It's the most tedious to be able to properly destroy the queen and find the queen when it's not hibernating. When it's not hibernating and pregnant and mutating its beings, and then when it's not below the earth, because when it's in direct sunlight, and also when it reaches fresh air, if it gets any fresh air, even if it's in a closed off building, if it's in a closed off building with fresh air that its own pheromones have not taken over a 51, at least over a 50% ratio or proportion, 50% proportion of fresh air that we breathe to its pheromones. So they literally leak out pheromones of what they breathe. So they literally breathe in what they leak out as a gaseous state. and that literally kills us and mutates us into them. What they leak out and breathe in. It's crazy. So to neutralize it, you literally need raw turmeric, some way ingested into your mouth. To neutralize the mutation from the antimatter spirit, you literally need raw turmeric. Organic raw turmeric in the mouth. And you always know organic raw turmeric by the smell. So when you're first dealing with organic raw turmeric, you know it should smell extremely pungent, and it should almost turn your stomach, if not make you vomit or want to vomit when you smell it. And over time, it's gonna start to taste sweet, salty, savory, and overall, it's gonna take on a feeling of like having MSG in it, as to say, it started tasting better over time without me adding anything in it. So it's like adding MSG to turmeric when you taste it over time, enough times, without even adding it. Because the flavor changes. It literally changes your taste buds. That's key. It mutates your taste buds. It's one of the things that's radioactive that mutates us, that doesn't kill us. So it just is bothering to the senses at first until we accumulated enough in our senses, in our being, in our body. So turmeric is the most important thing right now. And then to neutralize the antimatter spirit, physical bodies, pheromones that mutate us, it takes turmeric, it takes any formula of pepper spray or cayenne pepper mixed with rancid vinegar. And the way you make rancid vinegar, you have to mix some human DNA or some animal DNA with some fresh animal DNA, which means you should just spit in it, or would drop your blood in it, or you can even drop like some dirt or something from the earth in it, just like some live DNA, which means not a rock, not something live, like as in a plant, food, nothing that has already passed away, like meat. I don't want to put meat in it to try to make it rancid. That would make sense, you would think, but it doesn't to them, when you use it. And then you don't want to do anything inanimate that doesn't grow. Let's keep it like that. So the best way to, I don't know the best, because I haven't experimented with the proportions of the ratios of the turmeric, the cayenne pepper and rancid vinegar, or the pepper spray, and the last one is actually butane, because butane was used as a binder for the peptide bonds of the super pill that did this whole thing that we did. And so that's crazy, because butane is a normal gas that nobody would expect to be able to act like a universal peptide bonder for everything that's an element. So butane needs to be used as a peptide bonder we're going to mutate it again, because the only way to be an antimatter spirit or a mutant is to mutate it again into what we want to mutate it to, or like it's said in definition, to change energy into something different, but the same energy, but just we change it into something different. It just may look different, but we just change the coding of it. It's like giving something a vaccine so it doesn't get sick. You are changing something, making it positive to turn it back negative of being here in this world. And it's as simple as that. So the best idea is to strap one glass container of organic turmeric 2 full unused cans of maximum strength pepper spray, or the strongest pepper spray you can find, but any pepper spray will actually work to the highest degree and the weakest we have formula of pepper spray. And then also 2 cans of butane, about I think 18 fluid ounces of butane would be needed, about 18 to 30 fluid ounces of butane. And then that would essentially ignite, and then that would neutralize the antimatter spirit. And then, you know, the thing is, we couldn't make them disappear completely, because nothing will disappear completely, not even us. So, you know, if we can't do it, nobody can. That's real talk. So, you know, that's all possibilities. So, in all possibilities, one possibility is that everything has to exist somewhere. So, it's either we mutate them with the turmeric, and we mutate it to the point to change its DNA with the peptide, with the universal peptide binder of butane, and the stunner of the cayenne pepper and rancid vinegar, or the pepper spray formula, because the pepper spray formula, it actually works as the same way it works as us. It's one of the things that works the same way, but in a greater intensity. So this is how it works. This is how it changed. For them, pepper spray affects them almost. Pepper spray to them acts like hydrochloric acid to us, to humans. Whereas hydrochloric acid would melt us into a puddle, pepper spray melts them into a puddle, but they reform afterwards if you don't neutralize it with organic raw turmeric, enough of it, and enough butane. So that's why I came up with the idea, after reflecting enough and learning enough, to say that we would need a full, regular size container, glass container, like McCormick organic turmeric, 2 cans of pepper spray, any formula, and then of course 2 cans of butane. So to make rancid vinegar, because rancid vinegar can also disguise you if you were to be exposed to the awareness of a physical antimatter being. So the thing is, antimatter beings, the vinegar. The vinegar, you just add some live DNA to it, some alive DNA to the vinegar, sit it in the sun for 30 minutes, direct sunlight for 30 minutes, and with air getting to it. So don't close it off. That's how you make it. It'll be rancid over time. You only need 30 minutes. And then let's see, where am I? I was gonna say, the antimatter spirit wants to take this world and make the surface world its home world. That's why it was smart enough to not take over the top of our part of the earth first. It took over the bottom part of the earth where we weren't, so it'd be easy and it could level up at its rate it needed to. So it's down there leveling up and hibernating in the queen right now, and the king and some of the king can reproduce them too. So the worker, the soldier antimatter beings went into the king on the opposite side of the world, because literally in the thing with antimatter spirits and regular earthling spirits, they have to be completely 180 degree of each other no matter what, because that's the only way they can exist, and that's just the way they're aligned. It's similar to being 180 degrees conjunct. So the king and queen have to be 180 degrees conjunct at all times. So if you find the king, the queen is literally directly straight line, point A, point B on the other side. Even if there's not a direct a physical way to get through to the other side without breaking something. So the king, from the point you see it, the birthing canal is going to be on the bottom right opening. That's where the opening is going to come from. And then with that one, with the birthing canal there, you literally you can't clear it out, because the other thing with them, their outer exoskeleton on any antimatter being, when it gets its full physical mutation from the pheromones that are released from the dead bodies of decaying antimatter physical beings that have died, they actually become harder because of roach DNA, and you know roaches are immune to certain nuclear explosions, and they're like, when you step on them, they stay alive. It's crazy. And they weren't even really that superpowered, you would think, but literally their exoskeleton was their radioactivity. So the antimatter spirit let that be its exoskeleton in its body. So it's super radioactive, but it has my DNA too, because I fell in it, and it has dog DNA. So it sweats, and when it sweats, it smells sweet. It smells like our food for some reason. It smells like us. But anywhere else, it smells like the most pungent, disgusting, deadly, death-filled odor you've ever smelled, that makes you want to just vomit, and only vomit until you can't anymore. It's the only way I can describe it. Probably the worst smell you're going to ever smell, once you actually can smell it, and it gets to where it leaks out into the world, and you come across it. So when we want to know if we are safe, we need to trust our feelings and what we desire to do more so than anything. So if you have to check yourself and even talk to yourself out loud and say, do I really want that or this? And you have to write down what's better about each thing to decide. You have to, every decision counts these days. The pressure is literally on, and it's increasing every single moment that passes by. As we're still here, the pressure is increasing, and until we fix the problem of neutralizing, the queen birthing sac, and then detonating to neutralize the king and queen. Doesn't have to be at the same time, but we have to detonate both of them. And then once we detonate one, the other one's immediately going to go into defense mode and try to fight. So, since the queen is the weakest, but the hardest to actually patiently and properly destroy, you would want to go to that first and have, because if you go to the king, even if the king's pregnant with all the workers or the soldiers, it's still able to fight the best out of any antimatter spirit, because it's the chosen king. So it's been blessed by the antimatter spirit itself to be the protector of its kingdom that it has chosen of our inner world. So not to say it's indestructible, everything has its weak points, but its true only weak point is to be neutralized, and if it's neutralized, it'll just dissolve. So that's what's the key. So basically the solution is to use a special type of turmeric pepper bomb to neutralize the antimatter king and queen physical body that have been chosen by the spirit that has taken over and mutated physically our animal kingdom through our own exploration of ourselves to become our best selves. So in becoming our best selves, we have created our worst nightmare. So it's only up to us to decide, is this what it is? Is this a real dream come true? Or is this a real nightmare that we have to live in. And the choice is ours. And I know down there, they want a nightmare. But I know up here, we want a dream. So this is to say that we all have to do this together. Nobody is safe. Nobody is excluded from this war. And this is a war based on spiritual energy, mental energy of thoughts and feelings, and action of physical energy. So that is to say that children need to know of the dangers that exist and need to know that it literally looks like something out of a superhero movie that you're going to see eventually and you're going to hear eventually out of a horror movie. So you need to literally show everybody, a horror movie. They need to physically show fear, maybe even tears during a horror movie, and then that's enough. And they literally need to see a superhero movie that they feel a deep personal connection to, and say, and they need to be able to honestly say that I feel like I can do that. They need to have that honest belief that I have the ability to do that. And it starts with the parents. The parents need to make sure that a kid knows every second of every day that anything is possible for them and anybody else. And that's the best thing possible to be for anybody. And they need to be grateful about that. And they need to think about that constantly. They all do. Even the parents themselves. So we can all understand that. We all need to do that. It's something we all need to do, even the ones in the earth. So, and then the men that are 18 and up actually need to be able, and the women that are 18 and up too, they all need to be able to be ready to fight physically with all of our might and with everything that we have ever done on this planet for this planet. And we need to be able to stand our ground on top of this planet, and whatever comes up from the ground, no matter where it comes up, we need to send it back down where it came from. And we need to get rid of it from down there. So that's the job of every man and woman 18 and up. And then anybody 50 and over, senior citizens, that'd be considered a senior citizen for this case, 50 and over. They actually need to make sure they keep the earth running to the best of its ability as we can, while still maintaining safety as much as possible. So we need the senior citizens 50 plus to work in the grocery markets, the gas stations, to the restaurants, and people need to be able to be patient with them to help them understand and teach them how to do the things that they need to do. And they also need to be able to do the things that are asked of them politely, because that's very important to keep things calm, because we need to be calm with each other, because we're on the same team and we're not fighting each other anymore. No human is fighting a human, and that's the case forever after this point. So with the fight in question itself, we would need, the typical factions of the military to work in a revolutionized sense to make sure it's adapted to know that our threat is something that is like a landmine if the entire Earth's surface was a landmine. Because they have the power and the ability to quickly, effectively, and lethally either circle you in a big enough circle so you drop down like an empty manhole. They have the power to dig up like a drill, or like a squirrel or spider coming out of the ground, to dig up through concrete. They have the power to break glass at the simple touch of their legs. Their legs that are like razors. So they literally, it's literally like that glass breaking thing that goes like, but they literally can go like this. They can drag their nail across something. It just shatters to a million pieces. So the thing is, with car windows, you don't want to put reflective material in your car window anymore, because they see that very, very brightly, and their vision. Let me explain this real quick too, as one of my last points. Their vision is non-existent because they're the antimatter us, and our vision is technically part of all we are, because everything we experience is foundationally based off of our vision, believe it or not. That's why we say our soul's in our eyes, or the eyes are the windows to the soul. So in the antimatter spirit, they literally see pitch black. They don't see a damn thing. They don't even see their own body. And they feel like everything is very thick instead of everything is not there. How we feel things are not there, they feel things are thick. And they also taste their senses instead of see them. So that is to say, to cloak yourself, you would literally need to stink to us. So that is to say that you don't want to smell like cherries and fruit. You don't want to smell like candy. You don't want to smell like vanilla. You don't want to smell like brown sugar, cocoa butter. You don't want to smell like Axe. You don't want to smell like your favorite cologne. You don't want to smell like your favorite perfume. You don't want to smell like your favorite meal that you just ate, even though you needed to be comfortable, to sleep for the night. You need to smell worse and worse as time goes on from this point on. And that sounds so crazy, but it is, because if we smell, the worse we smell, the harder it is for them to detect us up here. And remember, they can't see us up here. So they taste us. And they taste us by what tastes good to us. So anything that tastes good, like sugar, if you drop sugar on the ground, that's like a hot spot. If you're trying to get them to come to you, dump as much sugar as you can on the ground, and they will come. You know what I'm saying? So that's just an allegory to be able to understand how to adapt to this new threat that we are facing inside of the earth. So the better you smell, you need to think, the better I will taste to them, and they will taste me even though they are not around me. So you have to think of, they can taste me even though they can't see me, because they can. So that's not to say you have to eat things that you don't like, but that is to say that you have to take extra precautions to make sure your breath doesn't actually smell like the food you just ate. You don't even want it to smell like minty toothpaste. You may not want it to smell like a bad breath, so you lose your teeth, of course not, and get gingivitis and things like that. But you don't want it to smell like minty toothpaste and things that normally can smell like in any toothpaste or food you can eat or drink. You really want it to smell completely different. So that's why things like turmeric, chili powder, anything that is similar to gunpowder, or, you know what I'm saying, anything that is similar to something that has a pungent odor. You want pungent things, because that is their kryptonite. It's pungent tastes, like lemon, citrus. Oranges are too weak and sweet. They love orange, believe it or not. That's a trick. They love oranges, but if the orange is super sour, I think like a clementine or tangerine, they hate it. They'll get tricked. It's like a grenade for them. You toss it out, they're like, they suck it up with their quick ass, and they jump on it, and then they're like, and they melt. You know what I'm saying? That can neutralize them too. A sour orange, because in their antimatter heart, they think they want it so much, and then they think it's all they want, so they take it because it's the only thing they see, and the only thing they see is them. So the only thing they see is their own death. So it's like a constant death for them for a while, and they re-manifest themselves through what would be a mutation, if you can imagine a constant cycle of death that it doesn't know how to get out of. It's like a booby trap of death for itself that it gets confused in, because it's like using reverse psychology on it, because we know from our perspective of truth that we know makes sense by law here in our world. Their perspective of what they're trying to enforce on us does not make sense at all. So, that was all to say the best way to cloak yourself is with anything pungent or rancid. That is the best cologne and perfume for you right now, and the best way to tint your breath, or to make your breath smell better. So you would want to suck on a raw lemon, a raw lime, anything very tart you will want to suck on. You can eat an apple to clean your teeth. You can brush your teeth. You can floss with mint floss, believe it or not, and wax floss. But you don't want to use any flavored toothpaste. It has to be unflavored toothpaste if you're going to use it, and you should be using non-fluoridated toothpaste no matter what. So the best thing to do is to make sure it's going to feel out of the ordinary for a while, but once you acclimate your heart to understanding the feelings that are going through the air, this is just the calm before the storm right now. That's why it's part of the perfection and the purpose of the world for me to be making this video right now, so that we're ready when things do hit the fan and this calm before the storm manifests into the supernatural disaster that is coming. So lastly, I want to say that the best thing for us to do is to realize we can do what we want, but one of the things we need to realize we want to do is to make sure we don't rush them coming up here to invade us. So we do that by making sure we cut back on showering slowly. I know it's gonna sound crazy, but it's true.
Y'all, I'm gonna just finish the video like this. The last part I was finishing up on was just explaining how to react to all this information I'm giving y'all. So essentially, I'm trying to make it as quick as possible, as detailed as possible too. See? They've, as you know, they built a tunneling system similar to ant colony, but just on a larger scale throughout the entire Earth's crust and below into the core too, going through the core. So it's like they literally boil up through the core, and magma boils up, and they cut it off with plugs that they make. They only taste. These are like tasting demons. They're like supernaturally harmful tasting demons, or the supernaturally harmful tasting beings, bodies, physical bodies that are literally of a different coding that's opposite our polarity. So we would need to, since they only taste and they literally see as in a blackout, or they literally don't see or sense anything if it isn't taste. Even if they feel like they see something, they're just tasting it, and they're tasting what they see, so they put a picture to it. That's the key. We want to make sure they taste something pungent or rancid, and we do that by either using rancid vinegar in some way, which just you put some live DNA in it and then sit it open air in the sun or open sun, direct sunlight for at least 30 minutes. And then you would put that like around your home, or like on your car tires, or on something you're wearing. and that would literally make you smell like them to them. And then, you know, they wouldn't, from the earth's crust, most likely they would not be able to sense you and approach you to try to probe you to see what you are and to see how you react. So the best things to actually get rid of now would be any soap, any detergent, anything that suds up. You need to think of anything that makes suds, like white bubbly soap, as literally something that gets you sick, because it does actually in reality, believe it or not. So that means you don't want to use dish soap, hand soap, shampoo, conditioner, body wash, bar soap, kid soap, car soap, all of that gone. Anything to us that is pleasing to our senses tastes delicious, like it's the forbidden fruit. That anything that's pleasing to our senses, look at it like this, anything that's pleasing to our senses is like eating your favorite meal to them. Everything about it, because it just involves us, and we're the holy grail to them. Like, we're what they need to take over here. They want to eat us to have our power to be able to take over our world that we own. So then they want to so what we need to do, that's my next point, we need to make sure that after we eat whatever we want to eat or do whatever we want to do, we make sure that we're checking our feelings for any feelings of something harmful being around. If you feel anything harmful, we need to, you know, take the proper steps to realize what is harmful, why it's harmful, and what it has to do with me. And the fourth thing, how do I stop it from being harmful, or how do I get safe so I'm not in harm's way as I feel now? Because we need to realize that our feelings are the truth of this world, so they are our guide as well as our intuition to turn to actions in the lower world, which is like this, what we do, you know, or speak, or breathe, blink. Yeah. So you want to make sure that you cloak yourself after you eat something, shower, or anything that you think would change the way you would smell or taste to something like that's below the earth. In the earth, I should say. The idea is to make sure we stay comfortable without allowing the threat that we're facing to actually gain an advantage that we know we don't need to give it. So you would really want to do what you want to do and actually heed this warning, use this as action too. If you're noticing weird shadows at certain times at night, you're noticing weird sounds coming from outside your home or from, you know, dark areas, you hear weird growling, almost like gurgling, it sounds like, or almost like an animal speaking in tongues, trying to roll its L's or R's or S's, like a snake. And then these beings can jump very high. They usually take the bodies of they usually mutate into things that look similar to insects or birds. Insects, they love to fly, they love to jump, and they love to be insects. It's crazy. So So you want to make sure that every time you feel the need to, you want to make sure you get some vinegar, you make it rancid, you add something spicy to it or something pungent. Like some spicy would be cayenne pepper, any type of pepper that brings tears to your eyes, a raw onion, a chopped raw onion, chopped raw red onion. You could also do ancho chili, turmeric, of course, cayenne pepper, any type of spicy pepper, but you don't want black or white pepper because it's too weak. You want to be able to, when you put the pepper in your mouth, you should feel a physical pain. Like you should literally feel like it's pain from the pepper in your mouth. You shouldn't just feel like, oh, it's spicy. You know, you should feel hurt. And then, so you will want to basically, once you experience a run-in with something that you think is a mutated animal or a mutated human, because humans can mutate too on the right circumstance, if they're either eaten and rebirthed by the king, because the king eats eats the little bodies that it has, and then it rebirths it, eats it with his mouth and rebirths it through the birthing canal. And then the queen, they go in the birthing canal and out the birthing canal. It just opens and then closes. It's like it goes inside out and then comes back together. So then, so lastly, you want to make sure you don't use anything that suds. That means no toothpaste. And you want to wean yourself from all soap. You want to make sure, the best idea is to make sure, it sounds backwards, but we need to do it. You want to make sure that you have BO. You want to make sure that things smell a little off, that things don't smell good. Just because you need to eat your favorite meal that smells great, you know, you can take the time to do that, but you need to, you know, literally in some places, you need to make sure the windows aren't open when you do that. Or, you know what I'm saying, if you're going to open the windows, you may want to spray a little rancid vinegar and spice or pungent on the windowsill bottom, just to make sure that it doesn't leak off too many of your own pheromones, especially if you haven't cleansed yourself from the many things that we put on our body that actually artificially coat it and remove the antimatter beings on our bodies that protect it. So that's part of why this has happened, because we've been removing the microscopic antimatter bodies from our bodies and they haven't become helpful after we've reformed them. So we've used them against ourselves. It's an essential thing, because even if we speak of things as separation or look at them as separate, nothing is actually separate in any sense. That's key. So after you would eat your favorite meal or whatever meal, you want to make sure you bite on a lemon, something sour, bitter, pungent, or spicy in the sense it gives you a physical pain in your mouth or on your lips when it touches it. And that's to cloak your breath, so even as you breathe out your nose, they don't smell that, because they can literally smell the breath out your nose and taste it. And I know that because one of them actually has come by my window, a probe, while they were hibernating, which is right now, when they first started hibernating, within a day after they started hibernating, before it joined the king and got eaten to be rebirthed again and mutate again to be more powerful. It actually came by here and repeated some things that I've said as if it was a parrot. And it wasn't saying them in English like I speak most times. at first it was saying it in its language, and they say things with a ra inflection. So everything it says sounds like rah, like it just sounds like the only thing they're saying is rah 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 in different ways. And that's what an inflection is. It's the way you pronounce a symbol. So a W pronounced as a ra would be like rah rah rah. If I were to pronounce A as ra, it'd be like rah rah rah. And you need to be able to tell the difference between these things, because you can literally communicate with these beings and you wouldn't have to fight them to tell them to leave properly, but you would have to say it in the way that only they would understand. And sometimes you can't speak English to them, or what is the real truth behind it, or the higher truth behind it, or the highest truth behind it, is that you couldn't speak your version of English. You have to inflectuate it differently. You have to maybe inflectuate it with an N on everything you say, or a Y on everything you say. But this is all part of your choice in following yourself to what you need to do in a situation to protect yourself. Let's see, and then there's a few other things. So just remember, anything sweet is really the main thing that's a powerful catalyst here for a problem. Sweet is like attracting them to a bear trap. So if you're trying to all trap them somewhere, use something that tastes sweet, and they'll taste it, and they'll taste it within that area, or they'll come eventually. You know, they may be slow to get in there, but they'll eventually see it off in the distance. Like, what's that little dot? You know how you see that light off in the distance, and you know what happens when you see a light off in the distance? You go in it, you find out what it is, the unknown. So then you have to basically make sure that you are cloaked at all times, and look at that as your invisibility cloak, and understand that you have the power to control every situation that could possibly be a situation. And that power is always in your hands as long as you are working with the law of karma. And that's the only law of life, is karma. And that law says that whatever we do is done unto us. So if you do good things onto people with the intent of doing good things, you can't intend to do bad things and it just happened to be beneficial and you expect to see the reward from it. It doesn't work like that. In whatever way, vice versa, you have to look at it. So you literally have to will yourself to desire to help somebody and to make them better. That's the key here. You want to remember that even though this whole life is painful, and the only life is painful, I can still feel all of this pain, make it actually feel good to me, and then teach somebody else the same thing, how to make pain feel good to them. Even if they don't look at it as that, you know? Because every experience makes you hurt until you learn what it is. And then it still makes you hurt. But you learn how not to feel the hurt and just feel something else instead. Because that's really all we want to do when we don't like something. It's just feel something else. And maybe that's really all we need to do. It's just completely and utterly feel something else. So right now, the key is remembering that all possibilities are possible, and you have the power of all possibilities. All of y'all, even them in the middle of the earth that I told y'all about, that I've learned about over time with one of the most famous lieutenants to ever come through the Army of Marine Corps. And this is the final point I'm making, is because one of the finest lieutenants to ever fight for us to free our American country in a fight to free our nation, actually passed away when it tried to neutralize the queen before it made a king. And the thing is, it didn't realize how sensitive the queen was and how sensitive these antimatter bodies are. So the thing is, they're sensitive to the point they can taste if you stepped on a stick. They can taste if you spit on the floor within 24 hours of spitting on the floor. They can taste if you pee on a tree for 24 hours after you peed on the tree if they get close enough. It's that deep. So just remember that they are, how strong is our taste? How much do you not like when you don't like the taste of your food? So remember that they literally only experience things as taste. So everything they do, they taste. So remember, our smell is connected to our taste. So even though we love to smell good, and smelling good, it feels like so heavenly and just what we all need. Just remember, if we smell bad for 2-3 years real quick, just let go of all the soap, all the toothpaste that's flavored and fluoridated, and then we make sure we don't use anything with suds. We clean everything with salt and salt water. We use saltwater scrubs to remove dead skin or to clean use abrasive things like a sponge. There are substitutes for all things that are harming us in this war that we actually need to win to keep our place on Earth. Because honestly, right now, the options are in this quiet before the storm is to fight and win, whereas we can neutralize the king and queen in the polarities to basically neutralize the antimatter spirit, to break its will is what we're trying to do, to make it give up and say it's dead and accept it's dead like us, because it thinks it's alive. That's why it's so toxic, believe it or not. And I'm gonna let y'all figure out why that's even toxic for it to think like that after everything I've told you on the video. So we want to make sure that we are using our common sense to say this is literally going to feel like a zombie apocalypse, because it is what a zombie apocalypse is at the time. And that's not to scare anybody, but that's to say that literally we have, super radioactively mutated animals digging through the Earth's core in a tunnel system similar to ants and beehives, with a literal dubbed and elected and christened through sacrifice of eating and digesting its own kind of a king. And the first mutant itself of the queen, which was on the original blast site of the original eruption that caused the big blackout that happened, where the entire world's energy felt like it was depleted and the world was black and nothing would work that was electronic, and the only electricity that would work for some reason was in the Bermuda Triangle. So now's the time to step into our dog energy. We want to feel like a dog, where we roll around in the mud. We can get shit on our face and not care, just laugh and smile about it, and then we can eat off the floor. But the thing about that is to say that what I just said about the dog is literally just an allegory to say it's okay to let go of the things we feel like we need to keep us clean, because our body will naturally regenerate a better source of antimatter bodies to keep our body clean, instead of the soaps that we are using that make us sitting ducks for the threat that we're facing. to our home. And us, which is our home. You know, we are our own home. Even though we live in ourselves and we are ourselves, we live in our home and we are our home at the same time. The thing is, we can't avoid this, but we can change it. And that's what's best. Always. Because everywhere's a new place. Everything's always changing. There's one thing that's always going to change no matter what happens. There's one thing that is always something in everything, right? Because yin and yang. Everything exists in everything, and nothing exists in everything. All things are possible, y'all, and we're winning this war. We're going to neutralize that king and queen, and then we're going to reform the antimatter spirit by will, and we're not going to wait until it's so attracted to us and feels so ready that it just straight sends every single bit of the antimatter bodies that were down there, that colonized the inside of the earth, to lead the queen and come up. And if they come up, which will be for the second time of them doing that, because they already mutated fully one time, then this is the second time they're doing it, but it hasn't fully come full circle yet. So the second time they're doing it is right now as they're meditating or hibernating in the queen and the king. So, of course, the king hatches quick, but the queen takes a long time. The queen would begin waking up from its dormant state on July 4th if we are to shoot fireworks within 200 miles of Castle Point, honestly, Castle Point Apartments. And that's just the sad and highest truth of it. Because of the vibrations, and they will literally taste the gunpowder. Believe it or not, they can taste gunpowder the minute it enters their colonized kingdom in the Earth's crust. You can literally they can literally taste as strong as they are. The only thing they can sense is gunpowder if it goes into their realm. For some reason, they have affinity for gunpowder, because for some reason it's like how iron's in our blood. You know, it's like our blood is nothing without the iron to help it carry the oxygen everywhere else to help our cells regenerate and fuel themselves. It's similar to that. It's like their oxygen and iron. So there's really nothing to actually be afraid of at this point, because we know fear is just the illusion that we don't have to deal with pain when we do. No matter what intensity we feel, we always have to deal with it. And that's just the only way to be alive. And if we stop trying to feel pain, believe it or not, we die. And that's the key. So tomorrow I'll be going over, since this video got into 2 parts and my phone died and it's getting long on the 3 hours, I'm going to go over how to defend yourself against an antimatter physical body, because the antimatter physical bodies actually, their roach exoskeleton actually mutated the second time a lot more volatilely, or I guess I'll say it's a lot more powered up, for lack of a better term, and it's a lot harder to pierce, but it's porous now because of my DNA. So that means to say, it was already true that a firearm, no matter the power, even turrets, AKs, M4s, they didn't work on the antimatter spirit because of something. And that something is that they needed to have the connection of the will of something to be able to have a will other than their own. So the only way to kill an antimatter physical body is to either sever it north to south, down the middle, directly down the middle, to pierce its head fully through it. And you would need at least a 12-inch blade to pierce the head fully, because their head can either be between 10 and 11 or almost 12 inches thick. So that is to say that the males, of course, their head is on their bottom abdomen, and then the bottom body, and then the females, their head is on the top of their body every time. So if you couldn't tell which one was which, because it looks the same or it's moving too fast or weirdly, and it could also jump in any direction and move in any direction, including north or south. So that means it could literally jump straight up or at a 45-degree angle at your face, straight up, and then a 45-degree angle at your face as it falls. It could literally, it could spit as in a spitting cobra, and then you would, if it were to spit at you, it would only be able to spit at you from its head, of course. And the males would spit at you from the bottom of themselves, and that be the head, and the females would spit at you from the top of themselves, and that be the head. So if you were to hit them with the long enough blade, and you were able to sneak up on it, you just trust your intuition as to which side you want to hit most, and you just go directly through the middle of the side, and you're good. You gotta pierce all the way through when you do that, though, from the top or bottom. If you're not slicing it down the middle all the way through, you need to pierce it all the way through. Then also there is when they jump. Oh yeah, when they spit. They spit, and then you'll most likely dodge it, and then you'll know which side their head is, because usually if they spit, they're startled. They only spit if they're scared, because they're trying to back you up or something. If they're trying to eat or feast and join you with the antimatter spirit, they're jumping every time. So every time they jump, it's do or die. You know what I'm saying? It's a ticking time bomb. You got to know it's go time. I either got to mess this thing up or it's going to mess me up. So if it jumps, you time it out, and then you hit it in the dead center of its head, which will be the dead center of where you most want to hit it. Or you slice it directly north-south or south-north. Or you can sever each of its legs, and then it'll die too. But you have to sever each of its legs at least halfway up. So it has to be halfway up its leg. Like think of somebody severing you at your elbows and your knees. And then that's the example I'm giving of that. So in order to sever them, you'd have to sever it at each of its elbows and each of its knees. So you'd have to sever it in half or further up closer to its legs, without actually cutting off the abdomen or cutting out the shoulder. So you would want to leave the shoulder of the each leg intact, however many there is. And then you want to cut in between the elbow and the actual shoulder socket. And that's just an extra way. So for some reason, bullets don't work no matter the form they're used in and how they're shot. And then explosions don't work unless they're a specific chemical reaction of an explosion. So typical grenades, like, you couldn't use a Lysol in a lighter. You couldn't use a firework without properly doing the chemical reaction with the explosion at the same time. You don't want to use dynamite because they can taste and you drop dynamite on the ground and forgot about it for 5 minutes, went inside, they could smell it enough to get there by the time you come back outside and put that dynamite back in the house. Even if you went in, put the box down, and just walk right back out, they could literally be there that fast because they're that great at digging and their legs are that sharp. Just off of them mutating and evolving through supernatural selection so fast. Just trying to make sure I don't miss any points. I said I was gonna go over how to handle them tomorrow, but I'm just doing it now to wrap it up because I feel like I can do it. Just know they are attacking only if they jump. They attack only if they jump like a jumping spider, or if they fly, they're attacking. They're not gonna fly to probe. They're gonna walk to probe. They're gonna fly to size up an angle of attack. That's the only reason. They will hiss to scare. They will spit to stun, to assimilate, and to kill. Because their spit can do all three. You know, one or the other. It can do two of those things, you know, individually. Or it could do two of those things at the same time, simultaneously. Or it could do all three at the same time. Which is literally means it could birth you into a zombified, mutant, antimatter, supernaturally harmful being just by spitting in your face. Because the only way it can affect us to that level of changing who we are as a person is by hitting us in the face. Because our faces are kryptonite to them. So it's very important we make sure we make our face the kryptonite for them when they get on our face, if they can get on our face. So that's somebody's job to figure out how we can make our face super, super uncomfortable for them to even look at or something. We'll figure it out. And then we also want to need to So remember, firearms are useless right now. You know, they only work on humans. But even if a human mutated into one of them, then of course the bullets ain't gonna work either. And you're not gonna like what the bullets do to them. So don't shoot them, y'all. Literally, you have to physically attack them with something that will not touch them with your physical body. So that's the key. These are body beings that are harmful that we have to use melee weapons against, melee weapon tools. So you have to use at least a 10-inch knife or an 8-inch knife or some version of a knife longer than 6 inches. If you're just gonna plan on cutting off their legs, and that's one of the toughest ways to actually beat them. So you would actually want some type of blade longer than 12 inches and sharp enough to smoothly be able to either cut something with the ease of cutting butter, or to pierce the earth and pop back out without making a suction where it gets stuck for a second. It's like sink, sink, almost like their legs. You want it to be like their legs on hard things. So it is possible to, just like with all possibilities, it is possible to make an antimatter bullet with metabolites from the DNA of a human, any human DNA metabolite can be used to make an antimatter bullet, but it I don't know the exact process. It would take a second to figure out. But you can use that to make an antimatter bullet, and that's cool because an antimatter bullet would work on an antimatter beam. But the thing is with an antimatter bullet is it's not gonna stop when it hits the earth, or if it hits anything, it's just gonna keep going. So if you shot in the straight forward, it would literally just fly in a straight line off the earth. If you shot down at the earth, it would literally go point A to point B, wherever it hits, until it dissolved in something that could dissolve an antimatter bullet of that coating, or until it passed through into space, maybe slow down in the atmosphere after falling through the earth, if it did that and didn't pass through to go into space and just float, and then fall back down to the earth on the surface on the other side of what it was fired. That's real. Like, you know, that's what an antimatter bullet does. It's something meant to kill beyond being dead. It's something to kill something that's already dead. So like, it's trying to turn something into something it already is, but more so that. So in other words, superpowered. And then the thing is with melee attacks, or like with using knives that are actually long enough to defend yourself against them or to actually kill them, it's because of our supernatural ability that we have, because we're actually radiated in our skin and our hair. We have two things radiated in our body, our skin and our hair. So the thing is, when our radioactive skin comes in contact with the tools that we use, like the blades, and they come in contact as a medium, it acts like a big battery with a positive and a negative pole of antimatter and matter, because any antimatter body that you run into is literally your polar opposite in some weird way. So you will be one of the only beings that know how to kill it properly and know how to intuitively handle its movements and its attacks and what it does. Remember, lastly, that the energy in the air around these beings feels similar to that, as if you feel like you're staring in the face of a T-Rex and you can hardly even put pressure on your chest to make your lungs move to breathe. Like this. Not just you can't breathe comfortably, you can't even breathe at the same pace you feel like you need to breathe to stay conscious right now, to actually avoid being seen by this T-Rex and being eaten alive right now. That's the energy it feels like being around these antimatter bodies, but it feels intensified beyond that of a literal, 20 to 30 foot dinosaur. Because this is the literal rebirth of the dinosaurs. These are the super dinosaurs we're facing right now in the earth. So I believe I went over everything. And then since it's late, I'm going to roll up and eat the rest of my fruit. So everybody, remember to be stinky. Don't be nasty. Don't be mean. Unless it's to an antimatter body, then be as mean as you could possibly be. But we want to remember that our bodies will protect itself from disease as we cleanse ourselves and eat properly and remove unnecessary baggage from ourselves. So it's going to be a true battle of what we desire. It's going to be a true battle of what we desire, what we choose to perceive from those desires, and how we choose to act based on our perception of those desires. Those three things are the most important keys that we have as we move forward to protect ourselves from the threat in the inner earth. And then we know that at the end of the day, even though it is a threat and we could end up truly dying and having to reform ourselves anew as a clean slate, we can keep all this knowledge and experience that we have gained and applied and used to past experiences where we were tested at varying levels of pain that it increased, to say that we are the best that we can be. We have learned that pain has been our greatest master to teach us that we literally can do anything we want, even if everything we are is exactly what we didn't want in the first place. Specifically, first line, underlined, all caps, and highlighted. Yo, do not make this like this. Do not make life hurt. We want it to feel good. But the thing is, the being that we're in that created us, to be able to know how powerful we are in all possibilities too, knows that it can't actually be alive unless it feels some type of hurt. It can't. So if it wants to know what it's like to do the things that we're doing right now, it has to hurt. So it's okay that it has to hurt. But the thing is, we can feel whatever we want to feel. It may have to hurt, but we don't have to feel it. And it sounds crazy. Excuse me, y'all. Did it again. I'm going to wrap it up right here, though. I was saying, it sounds crazy, but we know the truth is always crazier than we thought it was in its highest form. The truth is always crazier than we thought it was in its highest form. So that's what's good about the war. Because we have everything we need at our fingertips to do everything we need to do, and that's exactly what we're about to do. Excuse me. So let's get it. All right, I love y'all. See you later.